Pokemon. The starter Pokemon is Agumon. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Training? Fighting. You mean Lucario? Lee asked in surprise. Yes. Before, he chose Golly as the target of the battle, which was a choice without any choice. Because the core of training moves is grappling, rather than trying to kill the opponent in the shortest time like normal fighting. Tyrannosaurus with such a huge body will definitely suffer a lot of unnecessary injuries if it entangles with Golly. Moreover, Golly's fighting style itself relies on its own brute force, which is completely incomparable to Lucario, who is obviously more flexible and changeable. Under the same conditions, Qingliu will naturally choose the better one. Seeing Qingliu nod, Lee became a little hesitant. Is it inconvenient? Qingliu asked curiously. No. Lee turned her head to look at Lucario. Lucario felt her gaze and immediately turned his head away with disdain. Seeing this, Lee couldn't help but sigh and said, "It's only a small problem to ask Lucario to help, but Lucario and I are both impatient and tend to get more and more excited in battle. If we get too excited and forget that we are training, we may accidentally hurt your Pokemon." At this point, Lee felt that this would make the atmosphere awkward, and waved his hand and said, Sorry. I didn't mean that, I thought it was something else. These are all small problems you said." Seeing Lee's embarrassment, Qingliu smiled and shook his head and said, "Just treat it as a real battle and attack, don't worry about anything else." "That's what I said, but don't worry, if I feel that the situation is not right, I will take the initiative to stop." After hearing what Qingliu said, Lee hesitated for a moment and nodded in agreement. It would definitely be bad to refuse again. In this case, he had to try his best to let Lucario restrain himself. So here. Okay, let's get started. Then Tyrannosaurus and Lucario distanced themselves, and Aoyagi and Lee stood in the corners, trying to make as much space as possible on the top of the mountain. Aoyagi did not choose to put Tyrannosaurus into combat mode, because it was too big, and it would not be helpful for training moves, but would become a burden. Although the daily state is not as strong as the combat state, it is smaller and more flexible, and it can also improve the combat experience more intuitively, which is of great help for training with Pokemon of Lucario's size. Lucario, don't get too involved, remember that you are helping Aoyagi and Tyrannosaurus. Facing Lee's call, Lucario glanced at it lightly, and its red vertical pupils fell on Tyrannosaurus, who was almost the same height as it. Its trainer subconsciously thought that the other party was weak because he trained every day and the peers he met were not too strong, but Lucario did not think so. It could feel a very strong aura from the wave guide that the other party inadvertently emitted. Although this feeling and breath came inexplicably, as the spokesperson of the wave, Lucario always believed in the power of the wave. The guy on the opposite side is very strong. We must go all out. Then, you will attack first, Qingliu said to Lee on the opposite side. The next moment, before Lee gave any order, Lucario's strong hind legs kicked violently, and his body rushed out at a high speed. Lee was stunned when he saw this scene, and hurriedly shouted, "Lucario, this is a move training, what are you doing?" Ignoring his trainer, Lucario has come in front of Tyrannosaurus, and at the same time raised his right claw, with brown energy lingering on it, and stabbed directly at Tyrannosaurus' chest. A fighting move, rock crushing. Seeing Lucario's movements clearly, Qingliu quickly said, "No need to dodge, just use the fire fist to fight head-on." The fire energy covered Tyrannosaurus' claws, wrapped in a scorching breath, and slammed directly into Lucario's chest, as if he was exchanging injuries for injuries. Ollie obviously didn't expect Qingliu's fighting style to be so direct, but the damage caused by the fire moves to Lucario, who has the steel attribute, will definitely exceed the damage caused by Lucario to the opponent, so he immediately asked Lucario to dodge. Without Ollie saying anything, Lucario had already taken the initiative to dodge. He could feel that this attack was absolutely powerful from the wave emitted by the opposite side. Even if the fire energy was removed, it would probably not be easy. Thinking of this, Lucario's body suddenly fell to the ground, but the arm that had cancelled the rock-crushing attack had already supported the ground as it fell. With a fulcrum, Lucario drew a large arc close to the ground, dodging the attack of the Flame Fist while kicking his legs directly on the arm of Tyrannosaurus that was defending. The distance between the two Pokémon was widened again. You can actually perform such a difficult move while attacking. If Tyrannosaurus was not in its smaller daily form, it would have been hit by Lucario's sudden switch attack. However, thinking of this, Qingliu raised a faint smile and said softly, "I really made the right choice. Only in this way can I be worthy of being a gym trainer of the future fighting gym." On the other side, Lucario also landed steadily on the ground. At this time, Lee on the opposite side also found that the situation seemed different from what he thought. Lucario was obviously sprinting at full speed just now, and such a sudden switch attack was actually blocked by the opponent. Such a reaction is definitely not something that ordinary trainers and Pokemon can do. Lucario turned his head and looked at Lee, and the wave was released invisibly. Lee understood the meaning of the wave guide. The opponent is very strong, don't hold back, fight with all your strength. In addition to what Qingliu said before, just attack without worrying. Lee, who felt that he had made a joke, blushed with embarrassment. I was afraid of hurting others, but it turned out that they are also very strong. But the embarrassment only lasted for a short time. Lee quickly adjusted his state and his eyes became sharp at this time. In this case, then let's fight with all our strength. Lucario, use the wave missile. Lee made a Kamehameha gesture, and Lucario made the same movement synchronously. The blue wave missile condensed and shot at Tyrannosaurus. Dragon Tail hit it back directly. Qingliu still chose to fight hard, which was also the best way to practice his moves. The blue energy covered the tail of Tyrannosaurus covered with proof lines, and directly aimed at the wave missile. Bang! The energy collided violently in an instant, and the advancing wave missile was blocked. But the imagined direct withdrawal did not happen. On the contrary, the dragon tail disappeared as if it had suddenly lost its energy supply, and Tyrannosaurus had to lower its body to avoid the attack of the wave missile. At this time, Lucario had crossed the distance and came in front of Tyrannosaurus. Lucario, use your strength. Chapter 77, using your weakness to attack the enemy's strength. Fajin, a fighting technique, accumulates power in the palm of the hand and attacks with shock waves at the moment of contact, which sometimes paralyzes the opponent. In layman's terms, it is a Wing Chun inch punch with special effects. At close range, the damage is very considerable. At this time, Tyrannosaurus had just squatted down and had no room to dodge. Seeing that Lucario's claws had already stabbed in front of him, Tyrannosaurus chose to lower his head and use his head to meet the attack. As for the reason? 2 words, stubborn. Lee was also surprised by this operation for a moment. Although the bones of the head are hard, they are generally classified as weak points. Hitting the body and arms may only cause injuries, and hitting the head with Fajin may directly end the battle. But since it is the opponent's choice, Lee will not give up this good opportunity and command Lucario to attack with all his strength. The next second, Lucario's black claws staggered 3 horns and hit heavily on the top of Tyrannosaurus. Bang! With a muffled sound, the shock wave of the power burst out instantly, knocking Tyrannosaurus back more than 10 meters. It rolled over before standing up. But this was already incredible to Lee. Lucario's full strength inch force hit his head but didn't end the battle in one hit. It even looked like he was not injured. So, I have to change the attack plan next time. Lucario, use vacuum wave. Lucario roared in a low voice, but did not make any movement. Instead, he swung his arm slightly and took the initiative to pull away a little. Lee's eyes fell on Lucario's arm that had just used the power and was trembling slightly, and there was a trace of pain in his expression. What's going on? I'm sorry, Tyrannosaurus has a hard head, so normal attacks are useless. Qingliu took the initiative to explain, and then said to Tyrannosaurus, pay attention to its body movements. You should have seen it before. Compared with strength, this Lucario is stronger in skills. When attacking it in close combat, the skills in Dragon Tail and Dragon Claw must keep up with the rhythm. Tyrannosaurus believed Qingliu's instructions, but he was still worried about the failure of using Dragon Tail just now. What if it fails again? Isn't this the original intention of coming here? Qingliu smiled and said, Tyrannosaurus, no one will always succeed, everyone will fail, but you must have the courage to face failure. You only need to remember one thing all the time. What is it? I am the strongest. Tyrannosaurus was stunned, grinned, and then charged. The dark blue dragon energy covered Tyrannosaurus' claws and extended them out, turning into a huge dragon claw. However, before Tyrannosaurus could get close to Lucario, the energy claws slowly dissipated, and Tyrannosaurus rushed forward without any pause. The dragon energy was once again concentrated on the tail and swung out heavily. But like the dragon claws, the energy dissipated before the attack landed. Tyrannosaurus was not surprised at all, and directly showed his claws and used 2 consecutive slashes to fight against Lucario's metal claws. Ling, ling. The fine and dense sound of metal clashing rang out in the field, and Tyrannosaurus and Lucario began to attack frantically. The claws and figures became more and more blurred in the silent time. But after all, this was the first time that Tyrannosaurus fought in his daily form, and in order to achieve the best effect, Qingliu directly gave up the Super Flame and Super Blast moves that suppressed Lucario's attributes, and even Flame Fang and Flame Fist were not allowed to be used by Tyrannosaurus unless it was absolutely necessary. However, Lee's Lucario didn't have so many concerns. It was originally inclined to physical attack, and gradually gained the advantage with its fighting skills and flexible body movements, and this advantage was constantly expanding. This can be seen from the obvious increase in the frequency of attacks on Tyrannosaurus, but Qingliu did not plan to stop or use other advantages that he had given up before to pull the situation back. This was training moves, and winning or not was not that important. And most importantly, Qingliu found that Tyrannosaurus's dragon-type move seemed to have changed a little bit in the constant beating. Although the Dragon Dance had not made any progress, the Dragon Tail and Dragon Claws, which originally lasted less than 1 second, had broken through 1 second in the battle that had lasted for nearly half an hour, and began to move towards a longer lasting time. Lucario, exert your strength. Lee's voice sounded, and Lucario dodged the sweep of Tyrannosaurus' claws by turning sideways, and stabbed Tyrannosaurus directly on the shoulder when falling to the ground. The violent shock wave erupted, shaking Tyrannosaurus' body uncontrollably to the left. The intense pain stimulated Tyrannosaurus, arousing the anger hidden in his body. His originally scarlet eyes instantly became fierce and abnormal. Although the Tyrannosaurus living in the Folder continent is not violent, it does not mean that they are not fierce in their bones. Tyrannosaurus ignored his staggering body and directly stretched out a claw to support the ground. He turned sideways to drive the rotation. The dark blue dragon energy covered his tail very naturally and quickly, and he backhanded Lucario. Ollie obviously did not expect Tyrannosaurus to use the move that Lucario used to avoid the Fire Fist at the beginning. Caught off guard, Lucario could only protect himself with both hands. Bang! With an explosion, Lucario was directly slapped into the soil by Tyrannosaurus' tail, bringing up a burst of smoke and dust. But soon, a figure rushed out of the smoke and dust, and his body retreated continuously, pulling away and returning to Lee's front. You have learned very well, but it's a bit of a pity. Qingliu smiled helplessly and shook his head. Being able to learn Lucario's fighting skills and use moves to counterattack at the same time is a good progress, but the only flaw is that the Dragon Tail attack failed in the end. Otherwise, it would not be easy to pull away from Lucario as it is now, not to mention how much damage this attack can cause to Lucario. However, Qingliu is already very satisfied with this. Because he has been observing the duration of Tyrannosaurus's dragon-type moves, he silently counted and saw that the time of the previous Dragon Tail has skipped 1 second to nearly 1.5 seconds. If it continues like this, it may not be long before it can be improved again. Qingliu will let Tyrannosaurus start to get close to continue fighting, and Lucario will not show weakness. The long-lasting crazy fight between the dragon and the dog began again. But even though Tyrannosaurus has made obvious progress, the unskilled moves and the form that is not suitable for fighting, as well as Lucario's fighting skills that have obviously been honed for a long time, are not comparable to Tyrannosaurus in a short time, and the battle is almost trapped in a scene where Tyrannosaurus is constantly beaten. But Tyrannosaurus itself is tough, plus it has enough physical support. Qingliu is not worried. What really worries him is that the dragon-type moves that have improved a little in the previous half an hour seem to be stuck in a quagmire in the next hour or so, with no signs of improvement. Just like entering a dead end when learning dragon-type moves at the beginning, something is not right. After another half hour of fighting, Lucario was out of breath, and Tyrannosaurus was covered with scars. Bang! After another attack and Lucario seized the opportunity to knock it away, Tyrannosaurus launched another charge under Qingliu's command. But Lucario, who had been very active in attacking, did not move at this time, and Lee did not react at all. Then, she slowly raised her hand and signaled a pause. At the same time, She said, let's take a break first. Lucario consumes a lot of energy. And, I seem to have discovered the reason why Tyrannosaurus has such a high failure rate of moves. Quotation mark. Chapter 78 Unknown Reasons. Hearing this, Qingliu stopped immediately. Ollie walked over slowly and stood in front of Tyrannosaurus. After thinking for a moment, he said to Tyrannosaurus, please use Dragon Tail again. Tyrannosaurus turned his head to look at Qingliu. As Qingliu nodded, Tyrannosaurus moved back a distance, and the deep blue energy condensed and hit the ground hard. Almost at the moment when the tail just touched the ground and the energy had not had time to explode, the dragon energy dissipated, leaving only the power of Tyrannosaurus's tail hitting the ground. Use Dragon Claw again. Tyrannosaurus raised his arm and waved his claws in the air, but like Dragon Tail, it failed after a short time. After watching the two drills, Ollie turned to Lucario and said, Lucario, do you feel it? Ah. Lucario nodded affirmatively. Qingliu then noticed that the appendage behind Lucario's ear had floated up, and a faint blue power enveloped it. Wave power. I didn't notice it during the previous battle, until just now when Tyrannosaurus obviously showed emotional fluctuations in his attack. I felt it through Lucario's wave guide. Lee said, turning around and looking at Qingliu. Generally speaking, the use of moves is to stimulate the energy of the corresponding attributes in the body to produce moves. This is the most common and basic way in the public's cognition. But there are exceptions, such as Lucario's wave missile, which is stimulated by the power of waveguide. The stronger the power of waveguide, the stronger the wave missile, and this situation seems to apply to Tyrannosaurus as well. You mean, the reason why Tyrannosaurus can't use Dragon-type moves smoothly is because it doesn't mobilize regular Dragon-type energy, but something else, and it's because this is too weak that it can't be used normally? Qingliu asked. Lee nodded and said, there are too many special abilities in the Pokemon world. I can't feel what it is specifically, but I can be sure that it is definitely related to it, and if this problem is not solved, it will be very difficult to improve normally. Qingliu fell into deep thought after hearing this. He probably had a guess in his mind about the unconventional dragon energy that was different from the wave power that Lee and Lucario could not feel. After getting along for a while, Qingliu did not find that he had any special abilities such as the power of Changpan and superpowers, and Agumon did not have any either. Everything seemed ordinary. But there is one thing worth noting, that is, Agumon is not a real Pokemon in essence, but a Digimon. Although Digimon and Pokemon also fight by gathering and stimulating energy, they are both like cola. Pepsi is always Pepsi, and Coca-Cola is always Coca-Cola. There is a very obvious difference between the two. But why is the progress so fast when the Flame Fist, Flame Fang, and Double Chop are obviously the same learning time, and even except for the Double Chop, which is not very proficient, the others are almost at hand? Is it because of the excessive frequency of use that it has slowly merged with the energy of this world? Or is it because of something else that Tyrannosaurus has some unknown reaction? But if that's the case, why can the Dragon-type move of Double Chop improve, but the Dragon Tail and Dragon Claws don't have obvious improvements? Qingliu told Lee about his thoughts after a simple processing. Lee frowned and thought for a while, then shook his head. Lucario next to him also shook his head. My personal practice is still too shallow. I have never seen such a situation. I was able to discover this problem with the help of Lucario's wave guide. Lee said a little embarrassedly. Lucario next to her suddenly glared at her, and a faint wave guide passed over. Lee, who received the information, knocked her right hand on her left hand and suddenly realized, yes, why didn't I think of it? Lucario immediately snorted disdainfully and turned his head away. Lee was a little embarrassed by Lucario's attitude. He turned around and said to Qingliu, although Lucario and I don't know the specific situation, there is one person who definitely knows, and maybe he has a solution. Who? My father, the gym trainer of the Vale Gym in Vale City. Qingliu had no impression of the man that Lee was talking about. In the animation, when Xiaozi challenged the Vale Gym, Lee had already taken over the gym for half a year, and her father, the former gym trainer, did not show up, so it was unknown what kind of person he was. But since there is no other way to solve the problem now, it seems that I can only go and visit him. If it is convenient, I hope Miss Lee can help me make an introduction. If I can solve the problem of Tyrannosaurus, I will thank you very much. Qingliu bowed and said. Seeing Qingliu's sudden formal attitude, Lee immediately waved her hand and said, I just want to see my father and ask a few questions. It's not that serious, It's just... Halfway through, Lee scratched her face with her fingers awkwardly and said, "My father is always not in the gym, and I often don't see him. The last time I saw him was a week ago." Qingliu couldn't help but ask curiously, "Who is in charge of the gym now?" "When I'm here, it's me. When I'm not here, some of my senior brothers are in charge." Hearing this, Qingliu couldn't help but be speechless. Melissa of the home gym is keen on traveling, and Lee's father of the curtain gym simply disappeared. If I remember correctly, the father and son gym leaders of Steel City and Water City are as obsessed with digging stones as the champion of Hone. And the strongest gym trainer of the Marina Gym, Denji, who looks like the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze, also gave up the battle and was obsessed with scientific transformation of the future. He just dropped his badge at the door of the gym and picked it up himself. Most of the 8 mainstream gyms are just playing soy sauce, and Qingliu feels a little worried about the future of the Sinnoh League. But there is no other way now, and he can only try his luck. Qingliu was just about to let Lee take him to try it, and the Lucario next to him looked at Lee again, and a message was conveyed. Lee's expression changed twice, and he asked, "Do you know?" Lucario nodded, then looked at Tyrannosaurus with sharp and fighting eyes. "What's this?" Qingliu asked puzzledly. Lee immediately explained. "Lucario said that he knew where my father had been staying and could take us to find him, but there is a condition." "What condition?" "It wants to fight Tyrannosaurus again, and it has to use all its strength. P.S. The second update, and 2 more updates are being written. Those who stay up late can wait, and those who don't stay up late can get up tomorrow and read it." Chapter 79 vs. Lucario, 200 monthly tickets plus more. "Okay, no problem." Qingliu naturally agreed to this request, which was not a request, and then asked Greymon to prepare for battle. But Lucario stood in front of Qingliu and Greymon. Qingliu instinctively glanced at Greymon, and then looked at Lee with a questioning look. Lee quickly translated. It said that it just said that it would fight with all its strength. It also said that Barrio felt that Raymon's fighting power was temporarily restricted by something, and it hoped to fight with Raymond without restrictions. Qingliu's expression became more serious. Sure enough, the abilities that can be specially produced for a theater version are all troublesome things. It can actually sense that Raymond's data has been compressed by the Holy Plan. Do you really want to fight with Raymond without restraints? Qingliu looked at Lucario and asked. Lucario nodded. Even if the strength gap is huge and the battle will end in a short time, do you still insist on your current idea? Lucario nodded again without hesitation. Seeing this, Qingliu didn't say anything more. If they want to solve the problem of Tyrannosaurus's dragon-type moves being stuck in a bottleneck, they can only rely on Lee's father, so it is only a matter of time before Tyrannosaurus and its size problems are exposed. In this case, it is better to show it directly than to be shy. Then let's take a break and start after we recover. Lee and Lucario had no objection to Qingliu's proposal. After spraying the healing spray and eating the energy cube, they began to meditate to adjust their status. While Aoyagi was treating and restoring Tyrannosaurus in the same way, he said, "Don't worry too much about the next battle, just fight as you should." Tyrannosaurus looked at the other side's Lucario and Lee. Through the training just now, it also learned some small skills in hand-to-hand combat, and also understood that it would need the help of the other side next time, so it couldn't help asking, "Don't you need to hold back?" Aoyagi shook his head and said, "Both Lee and Lucario are quite straightforward. If you really hold back, they will definitely be more unhappy." "I see, going all out in battle is the best respect for the other party." Aoyagi couldn't help but glance at Tyrannosaurus. "You seem to be saying these things one after another recently." I also need to improve." Tyrannosaurus smiled and touched his head. "It seems that you have almost recovered, and the other side is ready. Let's start." Tyrannosaurus immediately stood up and came to the open area in the middle of the mountaintop, standing a few steps back from where he stood at the beginning of the training. Lucario came to the same position as before. Seeing this, Qingliu shouted to Lucario, "Move back a little, it's too close." Too close. Lee and Lucario were a little confused, not understanding what Qingliu meant. But soon, they understood. A burst of white light lit up, and the size of Tyrannosaurus, which was originally the same height as Lucario, began to double at a terrifying speed. Then, they saw a huge monster with a height of more than 5 meters standing in front of them, with scarlet eyes staring at them. What is this? Lee was shocked. It's not that she had never seen a Pokemon of this size before, But it was the first time she had seen such a sudden change in size. No wonder Qingliu said something so strange just now. If you stand too close, you might be crushed. Compared to Li's shock, Lucario's expression fell into an unprecedented seriousness and solemnity. The wave guide that Tyrannosaurus felt before, which made him fight seriously, has undergone earth-shaking changes in this short period of time, and the drastic change in size. It has directly turned into a sense of oppression in Lucario's waveguide induction. And it is right in the middle of this oppressive feeling. Ah! Lucario let out a low roar to break the oppressive feeling in his heart, and at the same time, it expressed the meaning of preparing for battle. Ali immediately gave an order, Lucario, wave missile. The blue wave missile was launched, and Lucario immediately followed and launched a charge. Shoot back with a dragon tail. Qingliu's voice fell, and Tyrannosaurus turned his body, and the dark blue energy wrapped his tail, aiming at the wave missile and whipping it directly. The scene was the same as before. Without any accident, the dragon energy disappeared, leaving only the pure physical strength of Tyrannosaurus. But the difference is that Tyrannosaurus has now returned to the combat form, its true form, and the huge power contained in its huge body directly hit back with a wave missile. What a terrifying power! As a combat trainer, Ollie naturally knew how much power was needed to hit the flying wave missile, but the opponent actually did it easily, but she would not sit still and wait for death. Vacuum wave. Lucario raised his arm and punched the air in front of him while running. The invisible fist wind brought gusts of air to blow towards Tyrannosaurus. Taking advantage of the moment when Tyrannosaurus's vision was disturbed by the airflow, Lucario raised his claws with a metallic luster and was about to attack. Tyrannosaurus, Super Flame. Qingliu's voice had just fallen. The next second, Tyrannosaurus suddenly opened his bloody mouth and a huge fireball sprayed out. Before he got close enough, Lucario already felt a hot breath coming. And because it was rushing too far forward, there was no room to dodge at all. Don't think it's over. Based on the feeling when Tyrannosaurus used the flame fist before, Ollie had already deduced that Tyrannosaurus was likely to master a powerful fire-type move that could restrain the steel-type Lucario, so she had always kept a hand for this. Lucario, you simulate. A general type of change move, you can imitate the moves used by the opponent, and then use the same moves to fight back. All Lucario needs to do is to use a fire-type move, not to offset the attack, just to explode as much as possible. With the size of Tyrannosaurus, if they face each other, they will definitely be affected by the energy of the explosion. Using the opponent's weapon to attack the opponent is definitely the most unexpected tactic. After the explosion, use Lucario's agility and speed to fully erode Tyrannosaurus's physical strength. Even though the size and strength are far apart, Lee still feels that he has a certain chance of winning. Lee has been planning this since she saw the size of Tyrannosaurus, but the plan can never keep up with the changes. She was surprised to find that Lucario used Emulate, but there was no sign of flames around, as if it had failed. Then, a huge fireball fell, and Lucario, who failed to imitate and had no defense, was instantly engulfed by the flames and fell to the ground, losing his ability to fight. How could it be? It was clearly used after the attack. How could it fail? Ollie was full of doubts. Qingliu could only express regret for this. If you, a Pokemon, could really imitate Tyrannosaurus's exclusive moves, it would be too outrageous. Thank you for the 100-point reward from Yaoyao's Fish Head. Thank you for the 100-point reward from Bookfriend 202212260300188826. Thank you for the 100-point reward from the rookie who doesn't understand literature. Thank you for the 100-point reward from Bookfriend 202005130001240011. Thank you for the 100-point reward from Bookfriend 161,128,193,946,201. Thank you for the 200-point reward from QQ for 3-part World, and thank you for the 588-point reward from Visual Impact. It's hard for me to find the reward from QQ reading, so I'm sorry if I didn't see it. If possible, I hope everyone can support the new book on Kidian. Thank you. Besides, I couldn't bear it any longer. I was too sleepy and it was even worse when I woke up. Chapter 80 Lee's father. But, he was killed in one move, which seemed a bit unfriendly. Although he did let Tyrannosaurus fight with all his strength just now, Qingliu didn't think that the battle could be resolved so easily. But he couldn't blame himself or Tyrannosaurus. Seeing that Lee let Lucario approach so directly, He subconsciously thought that Lee would have some preparations or plans, but he didn't expect that he would imitate the moves. And the moves imitated happened to be Super Flame. If it was other Pokemon moves, the success rate would be very high. I can only say that I was really unlucky to meet myself and Tyrannosaurus. I just hope that I won't lose my spirit in one go. After all, I had the upper hand during training, and the gap of being killed in one battle brought a big blow. Qingliu looked at Lee, who was treating Lucario's injuries, and walked over slowly. Before he could get close, Lee heard the movement and turned his head. Looking at the towering Tyrannosaurus, his eyes were very calm. He was not discouraged, but full of admiration and helplessness. Before, Lucario said that he felt that Tyrannosaurus wave was very strong and wanted to fight it with all his strength. I was still wondering what the strength would be. I didn't expect it to be so strong and end the battle in an instant. Lucario also woke up at this time, looking at Qingliu and Tyrannosaurus with eyes full of admiration for the strong. Seeing that they were not hit, Qingliu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, squatting down and using healing spray to help treat Lucario's injuries. Thanks to its good physical fitness, Lucario quickly recovered its basic mobility, and Qingliu also learned the location of Ali's father from it. Curtain Game City. Before Qingliu could think about the specific problem, Ali, who also got the information, suddenly had an uncontrollable anger and repeated loudly. He's in his 30s or 40s, and he's still a gym trainer. He's nowhere to be seen in the gym every day, but he actually went to the game city to play games. He promised me last time that he would never go there again, this old man. Ollie gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, making crisp click-click-click sounds between his fingers. Seeing this, Lucario, who had been paying little attention to Ollie, chose to remain silent and turned his head to look away. Anyway, let's go and take a look. The time Lucario said should be a few days ago. Your father might have returned to the gym by now. Qingliu comforted. Don't think about it, he's definitely still there. Ollie breathed heavily. As a daughter, she naturally knew what her father looked like. Let's go. Catch him in the act. After saying that, she jumped directly from the open space on the top of the mountain, jumped onto the tilted body of the rock, and swooped down to the foot of the mountain. Qingliu looked at this completely different face and this cliff-jumping-like operation, and couldn't help but be a little surprised at this change in character. Then he let the combat state Tyrannosaurus grab himself and Lucario with one hand, and grabbed the huge sack that UC had sent over with the other hand, and jumped down from the top of the rocky mountain likely. Vale City, a city carved out of a steep mountain. The city is surrounded by mountains and boulders, and the terrain is extremely steep, but the overall economy is very good. The Vale Department Store, one of the two largest shopping malls in the Sinnoh region, is located here, and the Vale Game City is located near the department store. Looking at the colorful lights flashing on the big screen at the entrance of the game city from time to time, and the very familiar game sounds, Qingliu couldn't help but think of the days when he secretly used a learning machine to play games when he was a child. At that time, as long as he had time, he would start working directly. No problem could stump his love of learning, of course, except for the parents who came to catch him after discovering that he was playing games. At this time, the situation seemed to be reversed in front of him. Ollie walked to the entrance of the game city and stood there. After a few seconds of silence, he said to Lucario next to him, "Lucario, check if he is still inside." Lucario immediately closed his eyes, and the appendage behind his ear gradually floated up. The light blue wave power started from Lucario and covered the game city. Soon, Lucario opened his eyes and nodded to Ollie. Ollie took a deep breath, clenched his fists and walked in. In order to avoid any murder scene, Qingliu deposited the sack in the storage area next to him, and followed Lucario in quickly. As for Tyrannosaurus, its appearance was too special and conspicuous. After entering the city, Qingliu took it back into the Poké Ball. In the game city, Qingliu walked around and looked around. Just like the game halls in my childhood, most of them were fishing machines, level-breaking games, single-player fighting, slot machines and other things. The only difference was that the patterns, characters, and target characters in these game items were all Pokemon. The fishing machine is used to play aquatic Pokemon such as Magikarp and Lobster Soldier. The options for passing the level and single combat are a variety of fighting Pokemon. There are also various Pokemon patterns on the slot machine. Overall, there are some novelties, but not many. Ollie also found her father quickly. A middle-aged man wearing a white short-sleeved shirt, light-colored shorts, slippers, and a disheveled face sat in front of the game, quickly controlling the joystick and looking at the game screen with full concentration. The moment he saw the opponent, Ollie's footwork gradually accelerated while clenching his fist. After aiming, he punched the middle-aged man directly. Seeing the fist quickly approaching, Qingliu couldn't help but be moved by the scene of the father's kindness and the daughter's filial piety, but the middle-aged man in front of the game machine seemed to have predicted the future and spread his palm to receive the punch. "Ollie, how can you be so heavy-handed to your father?" The middle-aged man did not look back, and did not take away the hand that blocked the attack, choosing to continue the operation with one hand. "I don't have an irresponsible father like you." Ollie retracted his fist and punched again. The middle-aged man had to put down the game and dodged while saying, "Stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Your strength is comparable to your mother's. It hurts too much to hit someone. I was born to hit you." After that, the two began to chase around the game consoles in front of them. Qingliu stood by and watched the scene quietly. Seeing the image and words and deeds of Ollie's father, Qingliu doubted what Ollie had said before, that he could solve the problem of Tyrannosaurus's stagnant progress in moves, but now it seems that being able to easily deal with Ollie's fists and kicks is at least not as simple as it seems. Maybe he really has a way. Thinking of this, Qingliu took a step forward and blocked the middle-aged man's retreat, forcing him to be hit hard by Ollie on the back. He gasped in pain, his facial expression distorted violently, and his eyes fell on Qingliu, saying in an extremely dissatisfied tone, "Little ghost. What are you doing?" Chapter 81 Another Lucario. "My name is Qingliu." "Huh?" The middle-aged man grinned and uttered a dissatisfied tone, then said, "Who asked you to introduce yourself?" "I mean, you blocked my way and left me with nowhere to hide, understand?" "I understand. I understand. You hurt me. It's not too much to pay me some medical expenses, right?" Qingliu replied calmly, "It's not too much?" Hearing this, the middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and looked at Qingliu. It seemed that he didn't expect Qingliu to be so sensible, and a smile appeared on his face. "I'm glad to know. Since you are so sincere, I won't blackmail you. Just give me 10,000 Alliance coins, and you don't need to pay other mental damages." As he was talking, the middle-aged man suddenly stopped and glanced behind him. At some point, Ollie had already taken a horse stance, and a fist that was charged at his waist instantly exerted force and hit the middle-aged man's waist directly. The speed was so fast and the power was so great that it even made the sound of a fist cutting through the air. The middle-aged man was shocked and quickly fell to the side to avoid it, but at this moment, Ollie's fist had already arrived. Suddenly, a red light flashed, and a figure appeared where the middle-aged man had just stood, stretched out his arm and gently blocked Ollie's attack. Seeing another dog-type Pokémon standing up in front of him, Qingliu said to himself, "Is it Lucario again?" However, the obvious difference from Ollie's Lucario is that the height of the new one has exceeded the average of 1.2 meters, and even the body size is a whole circle larger. It is the plus version of Ollie's Lucario. The most important thing is that this Lucario gave Qingliu a unique feeling after it appeared. Ollie obviously knew this Lucario, and after seeing it, he stopped attacking and said, "You've seen Lucario, he doesn't take care of the gym, but when I brought people to ask him for help, he actually blackmailed others. But you can't just act like you want to kill him." A slightly ethereal and gentle voice sounded directly in the minds of everyone present. Qingliu hesitated for a moment before reacting. The power of wave. This Lucario can actually use the power of wave to transmit sound directly to his consciousness? Qingliu has only seen such an example in the Lucario in the movie. Thinking of this, Qingliu opened the panel. Race, Lucario, classification, wave Pokemon, attributes, fighting, steel, features, psychic, possessing a tough spirit honed through unremitting training, will not shrink from the opponent's attacks, and can resist even the intimidation feature, level 48, exclusive moves, none, mastered moves, wave missile, rock crusher, metal claw, resurrection, double payback, bone club smash, sword dance, comet punch, vacuum wave, power, dragon wave, race value, 525, horsepower 70, attack 110, defense 70, special attack 115, special defense 70, speed 90, intimacy 10, gentle by nature, status, normal, information summary, XXXXXXX. Level 48. This is the first Pokemon of such a high level that Qingliu has seen since coming to this world. You know, even Sharona's Fanged Land Shark is only level 30 now, and Lee's father actually has a Lucario with a strong level and wave power. The guy he guessed was getting closer and closer. Facing this Lucario, Lee lost his temper just now, and Lee's Lucario also straightened his back unconsciously. Then, this Lucario slowly turned around, looked at the middle-aged man who had just sat on the ground to avoid Lee's fist, and said, "Kikugo, you should stop it. Lee is so young and has done so many things that don't belong to her. It's wrong for you as a father." Lee's father, the middle-aged man named Kikugo, heard this and said with a dead pig fearless expression, "She will take over the gym sooner or later. What's the problem with adapting in advance now? Isn't there someone to help her? Besides, I've worked hard for half my life, what's wrong with enjoying it?" Lucario heard this and shook his head helplessly. "Lee, do you come here for anything else besides looking for Kikugo?" "Yes." Lee then told the story of Qingliu again, downplaying the existence of Tyrannosaurus itself, and focusing on the strange power he discovered. "You have dragon attributes, but you can't use many dragon moves, and even your training has been stagnant. And every time you use a move, you don't use regular energy, but something similar to wave power." "Yes. This is the first time I've heard of this." The large Lucario was obviously interested, and turned to look at Qingliu. Without moving his mouth, his voice was directly transmitted to Qingliu's mind. "Young man, can I see what's going on?" As the main purpose of this visit, Qingliu naturally had no objection. However, now they are in the game city of Vale City, where there are many people and eyes, and there are surveillance cameras everywhere. If Tyrannosaurus is released directly like this, it will probably be spread soon. This Lucario seemed to know Qingliu's inner concerns, and raised his arm and waved it gently in front of him. The next second, blue wave power surged out of its body, turning into a spherical shield that covered the place where the few people were. "The wave power will isolate any prying eyes, and it is safe here," Lucario said calmly. Qingliu looked around carefully and found that the people passing by seemed to be unable to see them. He took out the Poké Ball of Tyrannosaurus and opened it. When the three-horned Tyrannosaurus appeared, the Lucario was obviously surprised. Even Kikugo, who had been showing little interest, looked over. "It's really a special Pokemon," Lucario said, reaching out to touch the air in front of Tyrannosaurus. Waves of blue wave power like ripples wrapped Tyrannosaurus. Qingliu signaled Tyrannosaurus to be patient and waited quietly. To Qingliu's surprise, as time passed, the wave power showed no sign of ending, and Lucario's brows slowly frowned. After a while, Lucario retracted the wave power, his expression full of confusion. "Just like what Lee said, there is something different from the normal energy, but this energy is slowly merging with the normal energy, forming a very strange state." Qingliu couldn't help but ask, "Then is there a way to solve this problem?" Lucario pondered for a moment and shook his head slowly. "I can't determine the reason for the formation, and I have never seen this kind of energy. The only thing I can be sure of is that it is not just the Dragon-type moves, except for the Fire-type. Learning all other attribute moves, there is a high probability of encountering the same situation." Hearing this, Tyrannosaurus immediately lowered his head in disappointment, and Qingliu couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It was basically consistent with his conjecture, which was also the reason why he didn't spend time trying other attribute moves. If he couldn't learn the dragon type of his own system, wouldn't it be even more impossible to learn non-type moves? Unfortunately, I thought this not so simple Lucario would have a way to solve the problem, but I didn't expect it to fail. At this moment, Kikugo, who had been silent all the time, suddenly sneered disdainfully. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82, Deal About Fighting. The conflict between a kind of energy that has never been seen before and the normal energy has affected the ability of Pokemon to communicate energy. Are you bothering me for such a meaningless thing? Kikugo supported himself on the ground, slowly stood up, gently brushed off the dust on his pants and said, "Okay, get out of here, don't delay me from playing games." After that, he turned around and walked towards the game console. Qingliu did not move. He digested the information revealed in the previous sentence. Energy conflict, communicate energy. Before, Ali told him that the energy mobilized by Tyrannosaurus to launch a move was not normal energy, and the big Lucario said that the two energies were in a very strange state. And Kikugo immediately picked out the core of the two views, and then described the originally complicated problem in a simple sentence. Qingliu didn't know if it was correct, but now it seems that he is really good. Why are you still standing here? Lucario, send them away. Kikugo urged. This made Ali, who was already very dissatisfied, clenched her fists again. She raised her head and was about to say something, but the Lucario next to her shook his head slightly at her and then walked up. Kikugo, Lee is so rare. Before it could finish, a crisp voice overwhelmed its voice. You don't know what to do you? Hearing this, Lee and the two Lucarius couldn't help but turn their heads to look at Qingliu, who had just spoken. Kikugo also stopped, turned his head slightly, looked at Qingliu expressionlessly and said, Kid, such a stupid provocation doesn't work on me, save your energy. Facing the gazes of everyone, Qingliu said with a faint smile on his lips, I'm not provoking you, I'm just simply expressing my opinion. Tisk. Kikugo immediately ignored it, sat down in front of the game console and continued to operate it. Qingliu didn't say anything, just watched him break through the levels, fight, get knocked out, the screen turned black and white, inserted a coin to revive, fight, get knocked out again, and it turned black and white again. Glancing at Kikugo's clothes and the few remaining game coins on the table, Qingliu said slowly, it seems that you don't have many chances, and you don't look like you have much money. Kikugo didn't react at all, and continued to insert coins to revive the character and control the joystick to continue to pass the level until the last game coin was used up and the game screen turned black and white again. Then Kikugo raised his head. Kid, do you mean that you want to give me money to ask me for help? Kikugo sneered and said, sorry, I really don't care about the few small coins on a kid of your age. If more than 100,000 is a small amount of money, then I really don't have much money. Qingliu said slowly. Last time, I heard Zaya-song mention that the basic salary of the Kifin Dojo is only 300,000 alliance coins a year, and this is still the case with ancient architectural attractions such as the Kifin Temple to drive the economy. The situation in Vale City is not as good as that in Cutting Edge City. The probability is less than 200,000. He took out more than 100,000 at once, which should be almost half a year's salary for Vale Gym. As expected, Kikugo, who was originally disdainful, paused, then slowly turned his head, more than 100,000. But then he felt that it was unlikely, and his expression gradually calmed down from surprise. You? Don't be funny, it's a question whether you have seen 100,000 or not, get out of here, don't affect my operation. Qingliu didn't say anything, but directly took out 120,000 from the remaining bonus after clearing the lost tower, and shook it in front of him. If you have so much money, why wait until now? Seeing that Qingliu really took it out, Kikugo's originally impatient face instantly turned into a smile, and he stretched out his hand to take it while speaking. Qingliu blocked his outstretched arm and pulled back a distance. I can give you the money, but you need to solve the problem of Tyrannosaurus first. Okay, pay first and then ship. No. Qingliu stepped back again, looked at Kikugo and said slowly, you look like this, it's hard for me to believe that you have the ability to solve this problem. The smile on Kikugo's face gradually faded, so, what do you mean? Solve the problem with Tyrannosaurus first, and then I'll pay. Hearing this, Kikugo grinned and said, little boy, you are quite smart. Let me try first, and I will pay if it succeeds. If it doesn't succeed, I won't pay a penny. It's a win-win situation, right? I didn't know you have a smart mind. When I was playing these, you didn't even know where you were. Kikugo said disdainfully, and then fell silent and stopped talking. Just when Qingliu felt that he would not agree and was about to think of other ways, Kikugo suddenly laughed. Hey, kid, at your age, you should have challenged a gym, right? Not yet, but I have plans. Then how about we make a deal? Qingliu looked at him and asked, what deal? I don't want to waste my energy, and you don't want to spend money in vain. Since we can't agree, let's just have a gym match. Jiao paused, and when he saw that Qingliu had no objection, he continued, if I win, you pay first. Whether I succeed or not, the money is mine. If you win, I will try to solve your problem first. If I solve it, you pay. If I can't solve it, you don't pay. I will also give you a badge for free. No matter what, I will do the job for you. How about it? Isn't it fair? You are just bullying me. When Ali, who was standing next to him, heard that Jiao actually started to collect money from Qingliu, and it was such a huge sum of money, he wanted to punch him. Qingliu shook his head slightly at her, then looked at Jiao and said lightly, "It sounds good. It really just sounds good. Anyway, it's the same as taking money to do things." Qingliu is not in a hurry for the money. In addition to the 120,000, he still has 20,000, which is enough for his expenses in a short period of time. But the actual situation may be that such a careless person will take the money first and then disappear directly. Qingliu is trustworthy, but he will still do his best after losing the bargaining chips. However, now he is asking for help from others, and he is inherently at a disadvantage. The deal proposed by the other party is indeed feasible. And the only prerequisite for feasibility is to win. Then do you agree? Don't worry. Qingliu looked at Lucario next to him and said, "You haven't explained the rules yet. In addition, if you send it to the field, how can I fight? As for the Pokemon I use, you can rest assured. I am still a gym trainer after all. I won't use the first-tier Pokemon to bully a newcomer like you. I promise to only use the Pokemon in the gym to deal with the new trainers, okay?" As if he was afraid that Qingliu would not believe it, Qingliu also pulled Ali over to prove it. Seeing that Li indicated that it was okay, Qingliu nodded and agreed, "Okay. As for the rules, it's very simple. It's the common 3-on-3 in Sinnoh, until one side loses the ability to fight. This is the fairest and can also reflect the level of the trainer in the shortest time. Is it okay?" "No." Qingliu was silent for a moment, and said, "But not today. I need to give me some time." "Why? Are you scared?" Qingliu sneered. "No, I only have one Pokemon now. If I want to do a 3-on-3, I need to capture 2 more." Qingliu's words instantly made Qingliu raise his eyebrows. The calm tone, coupled with the expression on his face, conveyed the feeling that he could easily defeat him by just catching 2 Pokemon to make 3, which made him very unhappy. "Kid, you don't think you can defeat me just by catching a few Pokemon, do you? Aren't you a little too arrogant?" Qingliu smiled and replied, "I'm not arrogant, I'm just stating the facts." "Good. Very good." Qingliu was immediately angry and laughed. "I want to see where your confidence comes from. 3 days is enough for you. I'll wait for you in the gym for 3 days. I hope your strength can match your tone." After saying that, he snorted coldly and walked straight out of the wave guide shield. But when he walked to the side of Tyrannosaurus, he suddenly stopped and said slowly, "The species is rare or even unique. The physical fitness is very strong, but it can't learn flexible and changeable moves. After all, it is just a reckless man who can use brute force. The upper limit has been locked. Obviously, you can have more choices with more than 100,000. Now use up all for such a guy. Is it really worth it?" Qingliu heard his eyes gradually narrowed. Before others could react, Qingliu looked at Tyrannosaurus again. "What about you? Are you willing to let your trainer spend so much money on you just to make an attempt that may not have any effect at all?" Chapter 83 The Bluebird Egg Jumping Back and Forth. Awagi. After leaving the Curtain Game City, Li and Lucario caught up. Huh? Li took 2 heavy breaths and said, "Why did you stop me just now? Also, you don't have to participate in the gym challenge in 3 days. Leave it to me. That old guy has to help, whether he wants to or not." After saying that, Li clenched his fists and said angrily. Seeing her like this, Awagi smiled and said, "I appreciate your kindness. I am very grateful that you can help me find a way to solve the problem of Tyrannosaurus. But I brought you here, but now I'll let you take so much money to take risks. These are all small problems." After Awagi comforted him a little, he said, "But I have a question that I need to confirm with you." "What is it?" "Does your father really have the ability to solve the problem of Tyrannosaurus not being able to learn moves?" Awagi asked seriously. "This is the issue he cares about most. Money is not important. Even if he spends all his money, it is fine. But if he wins in the end and still hasn't solved the problem, it would be a waste of time and energy." Upon hearing this, Li's expression became serious. Although he always abandons the gym to play games everywhere, and looks careless, if he doesn't know how to solve this problem, I'm afraid there will be very few people in the whole Sinnoh who can solve it. At this point, Li sighed with some emotion. He went to a very remote area and studied the problems of Pokemon moves with a very powerful doctor. After returning, he observed and learned the physical conditions of many Pokemon and assisted them in learning matching moves. At the same time, he was also the first person in Sinnoh to charge towards the fighting 4 Heavenly Kings. Remote area, powerful doctor, Pokemon move research, and sprint towards the 4 Heavenly Kings? Although it seems that he did not succeed integrating this information, Lee's father Kokugo at least had enough theory before, and his strength belongs to the relatively strong type of gym trainer. After getting this news, Qingliu finally felt relieved. The next thing to do is to gather 3 Pokemon and then defeat him. As for how to find and arrange these 3 Pokemon, Qingliu already has a rough plan in mind. But Ollie didn't know. She thought Qingliu really went to the wild to capture them. And even though she just said that her father had challenged the 4 Heavenly Kings before, Qingliu didn't seem to be worried at all, which made Ollie even more worried. Qingliu, the level of those Pokemon in the wild is uneven, and you can't tame their wildness in such a short time. Even if Tyrannosaurus is very strong, there is only one of them. Ordinary Pokemon will never be my father's opponent. Ollie said anxiously. I know. Seeing that Qingliu still looked indifferent, Ollie simply took out a Poké Ball and handed it over. If you really want to fight, I'll lend you Lucario. With it, your chances of winning will increase a lot. Qingliu was surprised by Lee's initiative to help, but still shook his head to refuse. Thank you very much for your kindness, but I think according to your father's character, I'm afraid that after seeing Lucario, he will cheat even if I win. Hearing Qingliu's words, Lee was silent. Because, this is indeed something his father would do. What about Haoli? He hasn't seen Haoli yet, and he doesn't know that I have captured him. That's fine. Qingliu pondered for a moment and nodded. Whether it was to appease Lee's somewhat self-blaming mood or to increase the chances of winning, Qingliu had no reason to refuse. Besides, this Haoli's own combat power is not bad. It is a good choice as a rotation or substitute. Even if Tyrannosaurus is very strong, it is better to be cautious when you don't know what level of Pokemon Kokugo will use. After taking Haoli's Poké Ball, Qingliu simply thanked him and took Lee to the storage area. There are some important things in here, but they are too big, and Tyrannosaurus is not convenient to move around outside. I hope you can help me move them. Qingliu pointed at the big sack and said. Leave it to me, but where should we move it to? A breeding house. The curtain breeding house. Looking at the building in front of him, which is only half the size of the game city, Qingliu checked the business card in his hand. It's right here. Qingliu, do you have Pokemon stored here? Lee put down the big sack and asked while looking at the breeding house in front of him. If Qingliu had other Pokemon as powerful as Tyrannosaurus, the chance of winning would be much higher. No. Then are you here to buy Pokemon? No. Then, come here for after-sale service. Qingliu opened the sack, and an incubator wrapped in a cardboard box appeared. Inside the incubator, a blue Pokemon egg with cloud-like patterns wrapped around its shell was fixed on the egg sac. Qingliu picked up the incubator and scanned it. Information about the egg quickly popped up on the panel. Qingliu's eyes were fixed on the status column. Status, not yet born, hatching time 00 days 0 hours 0 minutes 2 seconds. Qingliu waited quietly in place. 2 seconds later, the number in the status column on the panel changed again. Status, not yet born, hatching time 00 days 23 hours 59 minutes 59 seconds. Sure enough, it's still like this. After getting the Pokemon egg of the blue cotton bird that day and scanning the information with the panel, Qingliu took notes on the moves of Tyrannosaurus while keeping an eye on the egg. The closer the time to the 3-day time on the panel was, the more Qingliu paid attention. But what he didn't expect was that after 3 days of incubation, the egg still had no reaction, and the incubation time displayed in the status bar of the panel changed from 3 days to 1 day. Qingliu once thought that he was dazzled or remembered the time wrong. But when the 4th day came, Qingliu watched the hatching countdown return to 0, and then it became a day again, which made Qingliu doubt the function of the panel for the first time. The same thing happened again for the next 2 consecutive days, as if it was trapped in an infinite loop. In the end, Qingliu determined that it was not his problem, nor was there a problem with the panel, but the egg. It jumped back and forth between birth and non-birth, and continued to jump for 3 or 4 days, and even now it has not responded. It was just that because Tyrannosaurus was training at the time, there was no time to deal with it. Now that I have arrived in Vale City, I also need to gather the number of Pokemon, so naturally I have to come to UC to ask clearly what is going on with this egg. Then, Qingliu took the egg and walked towards the breeding house. Thank you for another 1,500 point reward from Belongman. Thank you for hearing that you're a 100 point reward from Kusanagi. Thank you for the 2,000 point reward from Lazy Cat-sama. Thank you for the 100 point reward from Fantasy End. Thank you for the 100 point reward from Siphon Yuhu. The reward has exceeded 5,000 coins. According to the statistics, there are 2 more chapters in total. They will be added in 2 days. Now it is ready to be put on the shelves. Wait for me to sort out the plotline and save some manuscripts for the convenience of putting it on the shelves. Finally, the second climax is coming soon. About a blue bird, about the third one, about the remaining surprises. Chapter 84 Tyrannosaurus's Confusion. UC, who was busy at the counter, noticed a movement at the door and thought that there were customers visiting, so he hurried out to greet them. When he saw the 2 familiar people, he was a little surprised and said, "Mr. Qingliu, and Miss Lee from the Curtain Gym." Then his eyes fell on the incubator in Qingliu's hand, and his expression was full of confusion. Why hasn't this egg hatched yet? Qingliu glanced at him lightly and said, "You gave me the egg, and you still ask me what's going on. It seems, that's the reason, ha ha ha." UC smiled awkwardly, and hurriedly asked the dozing Wei Li to take over the sack and welcome the 2 people in. Anyway, let's go in and talk first. Unlike the storefront, the backyard of the breeding house looks very spacious. There are grasslands, ponds, groves, and environments where Pokemon of various attributes live. Occasionally, you can see a few Pokemon playing and frolicking. Seeing this, Qingliu released Tyrannosaurus. The environment here is nice, come out and relax. Tyrannosaurus heard this, looked around and nodded, without saying anything, and sat down quietly not far from Qingliu. Qingliu looked at it, and suddenly heard UC's questioning voice in his ear. "Mr. Qingliu, may I ask if this egg has not reacted in the past few days? For example, shaking or the egg body emitting a faint light. From the day you gave it to me until now, the egg has always remained like this." "That's strange, I clearly estimated that the hatching time is about 3 or 4 days, how could there be no movement?" After hearing UC's words, Qingliu dispelled the suspicion that this guy deliberately gave him an egg that looked good, but was actually a dead egg. After all, the hatching time given by the panel at the beginning was 3 days, and UC could say 3 or 4 days at once, which means that he had also checked it carefully. "I just said that the egg was given to me by you, don't throw the problem to me," Qingliu said slowly. "If I say it, I don't know if you'll believe it," UC said with a somewhat embarrassed expression. "Where did this egg come from?" "I found it in a cave on my way back from Binhe City 2 weeks ago. There was only 1 egg at the time, and there was no sign of its parents around, so I brought it back," UC recalled and said, "After I got home, I carefully checked it. The egg was intact and the life breath inside was very strong, far exceeding most of the Pokemon that I have hatched over the years. I originally thought that after it hatched, I would keep it as Lacey's or Shinji's Pokemon. Later, I happened to hear that Lacey was in trouble, so I thought of using this as compensation." Qingliu didn't doubt what UC said. Judging from the information displayed on the panel, this bluebird egg is indeed very good, and even the panel can't determine its problem. Qingliu doesn't believe that UC has this ability. What he came here to ask is to see if he can infer something from the origin of the egg, but now it seems unlikely. "Mr. Qingliu, do you have any urgent things that require Pokemon recently?" UC asked cautiously. "Yes." Qingliu turned around, pointed at Ali and said, "You should know what I'm going to do when you see her." UC immediately turned around and looked at Ali. Ali is the daughter of the trainer of the Curtain Gym. In this case, it is very likely that she will challenge the gym. UC thought for a moment, and said seriously and sincerely, "Mr. Qingliu, even if the blue cotton bird is successfully hatched, I am afraid it will not provide much combat power. After all, the physical fitness of the newborn is still relatively weak. If you need it, I can give you a Pokemon that already has a certain combat power." Qingliu shook his head and said, "No, the combat power is just to make up the number. I don't need it to be strong when it is born. I just want to understand the situation here. I'm very sorry to trouble you. I will go and change another egg for you now," UC said, and was about to get up. Qingliu raised his hand to stop him, and said, "There is no need for that, let's just leave it like this. Then, you go about your business, we'll take a break here." After Yusi apologized and left, Qingliu lay on the grass and looked up at the sky. Seeing this, Ali next to him looked at the incubator, and after hesitating for a while, he couldn't help asking, "Qingliu, I roughly understood what you said just now. If it is really a dead egg, why don't you change it with another one? After all, we have been together for several days, and I will definitely be reluctant to change it suddenly." Qingliu smiled and said, "And this guy is not a dead egg. If it is really a dead egg, the panel will definitely be able to detect it, but this information does not appear on the panel, which means that this egg is most likely unable to hatch for some reason. If you change to another egg, you can certainly get a normal Pokemon, but in comparison, Qingliu is more curious about the egg that the panel cannot determine the specific time. What will the bluebird hatched from such an egg look like? This is the second time he has such a strong curiosity about something since he first obtained the panel to explore the ruins and finally summoned Agumon. Seeing that Qingliu insisted on his opinion, Li did not say anything more. "Then I'll go back first, and by the way, supervise my father to prevent him from disappearing again in 3 days. Okay, thank you for your trouble." Qingliu stood up and bowed slightly. It's okay. Watching Li's receding figure, Qingliu laid down again, his eyes falling on Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannosaurus has been quiet since it came out of the Poké Ball, which is completely different from its usual state. And this look started when Kikugo asked those 2 questions before he left. "Why, are you affected by that guy's simple words?" Qingliu took the initiative to ask. "Qingliu, just like that guy said, if I really can't learn those moves in the future, will I really be just a reckless man who uses brute force?" Tyrannosaurus asked with a somewhat dazed expression. "Of course not, you learned Flame Fang and Flame Fist in just a few days, and you learned Double Chop very quickly. The rest is just a matter of time, and, even if you really don't use those moves, your upper limit is also very high, higher than everyone imagines." "Really? Of course it's true, have I lied to you?" Tyrannosaurus shook his head, "But I feel like no matter how much I learn, I still don't seem to make any progress. You told me that you are strong, and I know I should be full of confidence, but things don't seem to be the case. Don't think so much, just beat that guy, and all problems will be solved." Tyrannosaurus heard this, nodded slowly, and then turned to look at the Pokemon eggs placed next to him. At this time, a Pidgeot and a Moko conflicted in midair. The 2 sides could not agree, and then began to attack each other. The 2 huge avian Pokemon with amazing wingspans flapped their wings quickly, and instantly raised 2 whirlwinds that blew towards each other. But they each used their own speed to quickly dodge each other's attacks, and then began to fight in close combat. Only the rotating small storm was left, gradually descending, and finally blew to where Aoki was. Then, the incubator on the ground was overturned by the wind, and the eggs of the Aoki birds rolled out of it. "Be careful." Tyrannosaurus quickly reacted, leaped forward, and tried to stop the eggs from rolling with his hands. But at the moment of contact, a white light suddenly appeared. Chapter 85, Bluebird breaks out of its shell. This is. Qingliu's brain worked quickly for this sudden scene. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with Tyrannosaurus, his eyes fell on the blue and white Pokemon egg fixed by Tyrannosaurus claws. At this time, the egg was emitting a white light similar to evolution. Hatched? Although he had never seen a Pokemon egg hatch with his own eyes, the few images in his memory and his strong intuition told Qingliu that this egg was about to hatch. But why? Before coming in, he had confirmed with the panel at the door that the hatching time was 1 day, but now it has hatched in just over 10 minutes? Is it because of the environment? Qingliu quickly looked around and didn't find anything special. Moreover, if it was really affected by the environment or other factors, it should have hatched during the time when Yusi brought the egg back. So, are there other reasons? Qingliu's eyes fell on Tyrannosaurus. Just now, it took the initiative to touch the egg in order to protect it from being blown away by the wind. Is this the reason? Qingliu didn't know, because he didn't have time to think about this question carefully. As the white light became weaker, the blue Pokemon egg with white cloud patterns disappeared, replaced by a chubby Pokemon with a pair of eyes that sparkled with wisdom. It had a huge beak, a blue tail feather, and wings that looked like 2 fluffy cotton balls. The bluebird broke out of its shell. Chirp! The bluebird first looked at the Tyrannosaurus lying in front of it, then turned its head to look at itself next to it, and made a quick chirp-chirp sound. Then, it began to flutter. It seemed that because it was just born and was not very familiar with its own body, after fluttering for nearly a minute, it got used to the action of flapping its wings and slowly flew up. After staggering in the air for a circle, its body suddenly stopped and fell directly from mid-air. Qingliu saw this and hurriedly caught it. When the bluebird found that it was Qingliu who caught it, it fluttered even more happily. It first tilted its head slightly and stared at it for a while, then jumped along Qingliu's arm and came to Qingliu's shoulder, rubbing its face very intimately. Chirp, feeling the bluebird's closeness to him, Qingliu smiled and gently touched its head with his hand. The bluebird seemed to feel very comfortable, tilting its head back and making a crisp sound. When Qingliu was about to try to stroke its cotton wings, the bluebird suddenly flapped its wings and flew up, circling around the position in front of Qingliu again and again. "Don't let me touch its wings?" Or, Qingliu recalled carefully in his mind, and after confirming that there was no memory of the bluebird not liking others to touch its wings, he stretched out his hand to let it land on it. But unexpectedly, after seeing Qingliu's actions, the bluebird did not react at all. Instead, it bypassed his arm and rushed towards Tyrannosaurus quickly and unsteadily, and finally landed on a curved horn behind the top of Tyrannosaurus. Chirp, chirp. The bluebird seemed to be very satisfied with its precise landing, and it puffed out its chest and made a rapid cry. Qingliu couldn't help but laugh at its cute appearance. Even Tyrannosaurus's originally depressed scarlet eyes were now full of smiles. At the same time, Tyrannosaurus was also following the movements of the bluebird, constantly adjusting the angle of its head to make it easier for the bluebird's not-so-strong claws to grab more firmly. Qingliu watched this scene with a smile and said, "It seems to like you very much? Qingliu, will it be our new partner in the future?" "Yes." Qingliu nodded and said, "You are the boss, you are responsible for taking care of and protecting it." "Yes, I will." Seeing that Tyrannosaurus's expression gradually returned to normal, Qingliu's eyes fell on the bluebird on the horn of its head, and then opened the panel illustration function. Race, blue cotton bird. Classification, cotton bird Pokémon. Attributes, general, flying. Features, not related to weather, any weather will eliminate its influence. Level, 5. Exclusive moves, none. Mastered moves, call, peck, feather dance, feather perch, white mist, charming voice. Race value, 310, horsepower 45, attack 40, defense 60, special attack 40, special defense 75, speed 50, intimacy 50, status, normal, extremely strong vitality. Information summary, XXXXXXX. In theory, the level of a Pokemon just born from an egg should be level 1, but not only is the level wrong, the number of moves is also quite a lot. 2 inherited moves, 4 moves that can be mastered by leveling up, and extremely strong vitality. This is the first time that Qingliu has seen this note on a Pokemon. Even Tyrannosaurus, Sorona's Sharktooth, and Kokugo's Lucario have never seen this thing, but it appeared on such a blue cotton bird. Moreover, the height of a newly born bluebird shown in the illustrations is generally around 0.15 to 0.2 meters, but this one is conservatively estimated to be nearly half adult, 0.3 meters. It looks like a big guy, and it looks very big standing on the head of Tyrannosaurus in its daily state. It has never been born, but it is very powerful when it is born. Qingliu couldn't help but think of Nezha, who was born after 3 years and 6 months of pregnancy and was able to jump around as soon as he was born. The only difference is that Nezha has a bit of a rebellious personality, while the bluebird is much more docile. But this is also good news, at least it won't get sick or have a poor appetite because of its weak body. After playing with Tyrannosaurus and the bluebird for a while, UC returned, and also brought a new backpack. This is a capsule product made of a special material that the Alliance has recently released. It has a space several times larger than that of a backpack, so many things can be stuffed inside. This is my little compensation. After all, I don't know when the egg will be. As UC was talking, he suddenly noticed the empty incubator and the blue-sleeved bird standing on the head of Tyrannosaurus. His expression gradually stiffened, and then his eyes began to shine. Qingliu took the backpack in time to block the middle. "What do you want to do? It's so energetic just after being born, and it's so big. If it grows up or evolves, it will definitely be even bigger. It is definitely a gifted talent. If it can hatch eggs, maybe more good blue-sleeved birds can be cultivated." After talking to himself for a while, UC said anxiously, "Mr. Qingliu, when the blue-sleeved bird grows up, You must come to me. I will definitely prepare the best partner and hatching environment for it. Stop. Stopping the crazy talk of the hatching maniac, Qingliu packed up the things in the sack with a new backpack, and left with UC's shouts of "You must come back." Greymon plus Guri plus Bluebird, the three have been gathered. When the time comes, only Guri and Bluebird will be needed to explore the way, and the rest of the battle will be left to Greymon. Greymon's fighting power is beyond doubt. But before that, he has to go to the last place. A place where he first set the Curtain City as his goal, to explore the meteorites left over from the creation of Arceus. Qingliu wants to use them to activate the summoning function of the panel and perform the third summoning. Chapter 86, Shinji and Kusanagi. The meteorite crater is located on a high ground somewhere in the east of Vale City. Because this place is the source of the development of the entire city, this area has been protected and developed by the local government and has become a famous tourist attraction. Even though it was almost evening when Qingliu rushed over, there were still many tourists around. Chirp, the bluebird lying on Qingliu's head, seemed a little restrained when it saw so many people for the first time. It's okay, don't be nervous, everyone is here to relax with their family, friends and Pokemon. Qingliu comforted it a little. Then Qingliu felt that the bluebird, which was originally lying quietly on his head as a hat, swayed left and right twice, and its two small chicken claws opened and closed, gently scratching his hair, as if trying to grab something. Are you looking for Tyrannosaurus? Chirp. Seeing the bluebird nod, Qingliu smiled and said, "It's rusting in the Poké Ball. We can see it when we go back later." The bluebird suddenly called out helplessly twice. This made Qingliu a little confused. Was it because he saw both himself and Tyrannosaurus when he broke out of his shell, so the intimacy was split in half, or was it because the horns on Tyrannosaurus' head were regarded by Bluebird as equivalent to tree branches, so he felt close to it? Qingliu was puzzled. But it was okay this way. Since he met Tyrannosaurus, he only paid attention to his physical condition in combat, and ignored his mental state. Even though he had been cheering him up recently, many things were experienced for the first time, just like Kikugo's this time. His psychological defense line was not built thoroughly enough, and it was easy to have negative emotions. Now there's a cute little guy like Bluebird to neutralize it, maybe it can have a good easing effect. Qingliu thought while crossing the stone steps and came to the side of the meteorite crater. The breeze blew, the green grass swayed, but the four brown meteorites stayed quietly in place. Just a glance, you can feel the breath of time on the surface of the meteorites as if it had been brought from eternity. This kind of thing that meets the requirements at first glance, Qingliu is very satisfied. Ancient traces detected. Searching for target, searching, target locked, meteorite with a trace of Arceus power remaining, exploration progress. 0%, 10%, 20, 25%, exploration completed. Aren't these four meteorites separate entities, but a whole? After seeing that the progress bar was completely stuck at 25%, Qingliu turned to another meteorite next to him. Exploration progress. 25%, 34%, 50%. Following the same method, when Qingliu's eyes fell on the fourth meteorite, the progress bar finally reached 100%. Exploration completed, can be summoned. Summoning target, random, yes no. Qingliu looked around beyond a prompt on the panel, and finally put it aside for the time being. There were too many people around, and if he summoned here, he would definitely be noticed, but it would be even more troublesome if a big guy appeared. After finishing his business, Qingliu immediately planned to leave. Suddenly, a somewhat childish voice came from not far away. Stop. Qingliu stopped when he heard it. Not far away, a young man in gray trousers, a blue-black jacket and rose-purple hair was running towards him. Next to him, there was a tortoise with a yellow-green body, a brown shell on its back and a newly sprouted sapling on the spot on its head. With this appearance and this combination, Qingliu instantly thought of the other party's identity, Shinji. Shinji quickly ran in front of him, panting, but his eyes were fixed on him. It's you who made my brother change his mind about challenging the Sinnoh League with me, right? Woo. Shinji questioned, and the grass turtle next to him also joined in angrily. Originally, he planned to set off with his respected brother Lacey to challenge the Sinnoh region after receiving the initial Pokemon. But when he took the grass turtle to Lacey yesterday, Lacey told him that he wanted to go to the Kanto region to train first, improve his level and strength, and then come back to challenge the Sinnoh League. This sudden change made Shinji unable to accept it for a while. They had agreed to travel together, challenge gyms together, and participate in tournaments together, but now he has to go to the far Kanto region alone. Frustrated, Shinji began to think about what caused his brother's change. After asking around, he found out that someone had defeated his brother and showed up at his house today. He chased after his father regardless of his father's dissuasion. "Don't be silent, I'm asking you a question, answer me." Aoyagi looked at Shinji, whose personality was completely different from his impression, and couldn't help but feel amused. Before being beaten up by Kamishiro, these brothers really had swapped personalities. Then he said, "Didn't your father tell you that it is very rude not to introduce yourself before asking others a question?" Ah. Shinji was obviously stunned, and looked at Squirtle. After getting the turtle's unknown, he quickly said, "My name is Shinji, and my goal is to become a strong trainer." Woo. Woo. Seeing the two cute reactions, Aoyagi followed and said, "My name is Aoyagi, a vagrant, and this is Bluebird." After introducing himself, Shinji couldn't wait to say again, "You haven't answered my question just now. I don't know, but I feel that your brother may have been hit. After all, he couldn't beat one of me with 4 Pokemon. It's normal for him to travel to another area to avoid me. You're talking nonsense." Hearing Aoyagi's words, Shinji immediately retorted, "My brother is so powerful, even if he loses, it's impossible that 4 of them can't beat one of you. It's up to you whether you believe it or not." Aoyagi spread his hands and said, "Okay, I don't have time to play with a little kid now. Don't go. If you are really that powerful, do you dare to have a battle with me?" Shinji clenched his fists and said excitedly. Upon hearing this, Kusanagi immediately rushed to the front of Shinji and faced Aoyagi, ready to fight at any time. "I told you I don't have time. Bye." Ignoring Shinji's invitation, Aoyagi turned around and left. Seeing that Aoyagi really had no intention of accepting or looking back, Shinji suddenly became anxious. "Why don't you dare to accept the fight? Are you scared? Coward, I'm afraid the story of defeating my brother is also fake." Woo woo woo. Kusanagi kept muttering to Aoyagi's back. Aoyagi, who had walked out almost 10 meters, shook his head helplessly. He was tired of this kind of low-level provocation when he was a child. How could it be useful to him? The next thing to do is to go to the gym competition and defeat Kikugo to get the solution for Tyrannosaurus to solve the problem of his inability to learn moves, instead of this kind of childish play. But what Aoyagi didn't expect was that in the face of the provocation of Shinji and Kusanagi, he did not fall for it, but he didn't come alone. There will be another chapter later. Chapter 87, Bluebird's First Battle. Originally, the Bluebird felt constrained about going out for a walk, so except for the beginning, it remained quiet. Even when Qingliu introduced it just now, it only looked at it and didn't say anything. But when it heard someone verbally attacking Qingliu, it instantly became angry. Especially when it saw that the turtle with green hair on its head had been nagging since it appeared, it was even more infuriating. From birth to now, Tyrannosaurus and Qingliu have always been gentle, good-tempered and patient with it, but it was provoked and insulted like this. How could it tolerate this? The Bluebird couldn't tolerate it. So the Bluebird flapped its wings and flew away from Qingliu's head, hovering in the air, looking down at Shinji and Kusanagi fiercely. Chirp chirp. Kusanagi was stunned, and then said, "Woo. Woo woo. Chirp chirp." Dot. Seeing the Bluebird being provoked into verbal battle so easily, Qingliu felt helpless. It seems that it is not only Tyrannosaurus that needs to do ideological work and build a psychological defense line. Blue Cottonbird also needs to do this. It cannot relax just because it is still young. Shinji saw Blue Cottonbird and Grass Turtle swearing at each other, and a smile suddenly appeared on his face. "Now you have to fight even if you don't want to, Grass Turtle, use leaves." Woo. Grass Turtle raised its 2 front feet and stepped hard on the grass. The scattered leaves and grass on the ground were shaken off the ground. Grass Turtle then twisted its head and used the branches of the saplings on its head to hit the leaves and grass. The next second, all the leaves and grass turned into rotating flying knives and shot at the Blue Cottonbird in the air. Fly up to avoid it, and then keep your distance. With Qingliu's voice, Blue Cottonbird flapped its wings and flew to a higher position. Without enough power and energy to support the leaf moves, they fell from the air as the distance increased. Taking advantage of this gap, Qingliu looked at Grass Turtle and opened the panel. Race, Squirtle, Classification, Tenderleaf Pokemon, Attribute, Grass. Features: hard shell armor, protected by a hard shell. The opponent's attacks will not hit the vital points. Level 5. Exclusive moves: none. Mastered moves: impact, retracting into shell, leaf. Race value: 318, horsepower 55, attack 68, defense 64, special attack 45, special defense 55, speed 31, intimacy -1, status normal. Information summary: likes to live by the water and bask in the sun. Uses the whole body to photosynthesize oxygen. The stronger the sunlight, the more energetic it is. The shell on its back is made of mud. If it is kept hydrated, it will become moist and increase its hardness. The only one that can attack from a distance has a large pre-swing, similar to the mini version of Leaf Blade. Is it the Leaf move that I just got? After seeing the level and all the moves mastered, Qingliu formulated a battle plan. Since Qingliu has chosen to fight and has no intention of leaving, he can only try his best to help it win. If the first battle can be won, the confidence of the Bluebird will be greatly improved. Bluebird, White Mist, and then Feather Dance. Chew. The Bluebird suddenly opened its beak and spit out a cloud of misty gas towards the ground, covering the surroundings of the grass turtle. At the same time, cotton-like feathers fell off its wings and merged into the white mist. Faced with this sudden scene, the grass turtle was a little lost for a while, and kept rushing around, but it could not get out of the range of the white mist. But Shinji is Shinji after all. Even if he is just a newcomer now and has not completely changed, he is not a super newbie like Xiaoxia who doesn't even understand attribute restraint. Grass turtle, find a direction and use collision at full speed to rush out. The grass turtle surrounded by the white mist immediately took steps and began to charge, completely ignoring the fact that the feathers mixed in the white mist were sticking more and more with its movements. Finally, after taking countless steps, the grass turtle finally found the end of the white mist, which gave it hope and prepared to rush out. The next second, a slightly playful and cute cry suddenly sounded in his ears. The grass turtle was stunned and his attention was a little distracted for a while. Grass turtle, watch out for your head. Hit it. Shinji shouted, and the grass turtle suddenly became alert and focused his attention and looked up. At some point, the bluebird had already flown above its head, not giving it any time to react. A sharp white light flashed on its beak, pecking attack. The next second, the sound of breaking through the air, wrapped in the energy of the flying system, directly pecked the grass turtle's head heavily. Bang! With a muffled sound, the grass turtle's head was pecked into the ground in an instant, and there was no movement. Grass turtle. Shinji immediately rushed up, picked up the grass turtle to check the situation, and was relieved after confirming that it was only injured and unconscious. Then he looked up unwillingly at Qingliu and the bluebird that had difficulty flying in the air. He's just born, but he's so strong. Even if his attributes are inferior, the one-shot kill is enough to prove the gap between the two sides. Especially Aoyagi, he was almost commanding when the bluebird was almost exhausted. If Squirtle could resist the next attack, he might have won. But there's no if, and the opponent didn't even take it seriously, didn't take out other Pokemon, and only used a Pokemon that was less than a day old to beat him. Shinji really felt that there was not only a gap in Pokemon, but also a gap in trainers. He had never felt this gap so strongly in his brother. This was enough to prove that his brother was indeed defeated, and even the change in the order of regional challenges was probably because of this guy in front of him. Damn it. He suffered a disastrous defeat before he even set out on the journey. At this moment, Shinji felt unprecedented frustration and powerlessness, and at the same time, the seeds of his desire to become stronger and stronger were quietly planted in his heart. Compared to the already fainted grass turtle and the indignant Shinji, the face of the bluebird was full of smugness after the victory. If it hadn't run out of energy, it would have been so proud for the whole day. Then, the bluebird flew back, and before it could find the right angle to stop, it stumbled and fell directly from midair. Seeing this, Qingliu hurriedly caught it and put it on his head. No matter how strong your vitality is, you are just a newly born little guy. Thinking of the bluebird's strange body shape, Qingliu changed his words and said, "It's just a newly born big guy. The burden of fighting is still too much for you." Chirp, chirp. The bluebird shook its head immediately, as if the other party had provoked it first and it fought back. Qingliu shook his head helplessly. "Forget it this time. It won't happen again next time." The bluebird immediately closed its mouth, moved its body with difficulty, rubbed its face against Qingliu's head gently, and made a lovely cry. It's no use to act cute and coquettish. If you do it recklessly, something will go wrong sooner or later. Chirp, chirp. The bluebird nodded repeatedly, as if it had heard him. As for whether it really heard him, no one knew. Qingliu sighed, fed the bluebird a suitable energy block, and then walked towards the woods near the meteorite crater. Now that the bluebird had just finished fighting, it might not be able to recover its strength for a while, so it could only use the summoning opportunity it had just obtained after exploring the meteorite to try to summon one. I just don't know what it will be this time. As for Shinji, if it weren't for the bluebird being irritated, he wouldn't want to pay too much attention to it. As they walked, Shinji's voice came from behind. Just wait, I will defeat you one day. Ignoring the childish "I will definitely come back," Qingliu slowly walked towards the woods. This indifferent expression made Shinji clench his fists. Qingliu had already passed through the crater and came to the depths of the woods. There were only a few street lights shining here, and it was pitch black all around. Compared to the area near the crater, it was very quiet. Qingliu took out the Poké Ball and opened it. After a flash of red light, Tyrannosaurus appeared in his normal state. Help me check the surroundings. What I'm going to do next is to make sure there is no one around. Do you understand? Tyrannosaurus nodded and began to patrol the surroundings. Qingliu himself relied on the function of the panel to search for Pokémon. One was looking for people, and the other was looking for Pokémon. Chapter 88: The Legendary White Stone. No Pokémon could escape the detection of the panel at close range, and without the help of Pokémon, no one could escape the carpet search of Qingliu, Tyrannosaurus and Bluebird. With the last two extremely brave muckers not responding to Tyrannosaurus's threats and being almost sent away by two fireballs, the grove became completely quiet. Qingliu then looked at the panel. Exploration completed, can be summoned, summon object, random, yes no. As the options fell gently, the panel shattered into dots of blue light, and patterns representing various things, props, Digimon, etc. flashed before his eyes one by one, until they finally stopped. Summoned object, legendary Shiraishi, summoning. Qingliu was a little unresponsive for a while, and two lines of blue small words flashed quickly before his eyes, and the blue light dots began to rotate rapidly, turning into a channel that seemed to connect to another dimension. The next second, a dull and continuous sound came from inside, giving Qingliu the feeling that Tyrannosaurus in combat mode was running at full speed. Combined with the summoning object just prompted, Qingliu had a bad premonition in his heart and instinctively took a few steps back. The next second, an oval object with a height of nearly 2 meters and a width of 1 meter rolled out of the passage and hit the place where he was standing just now. Boom! Looking at the huge stone that directly pressed the ground down, Qingliu was relieved. Sure enough, he was right. That sound was not something that ordinary guys could make. But why does the name Legendary White Stone sound so familiar? The huge stone in front of him was different from all the stones he had seen before. Qingliu could even vaguely feel a faint sense of oppression from it. And compared to its name Legendary White Stone, this one in front of him should perhaps be called Legendary Yellow Stone or Legendary Brown Stone, because its surface is all yellow-brown, and there is no trace of white at all. Qingliu immediately stepped forward and patted the surface with his hand. The feel and sound are both stone. Qingliu fell into deep thought. The panel has summoned 3 things so far. The first 2 are related to Digimon, and he knows them, but he really has a vague feeling of familiarity with the third one, but he just can't remember it right away. So Qingliu locked his eyes on the boulder and adjusted the panel. The illustrated information soon appeared in front of him. Race, Legendary White Stone. Classification, Advent Pokémon. Attribute, Dragon. Feature, Break and Stand. When the outer layer of defense is broken, it will have a brand new posture. Level, 0. Exclusive moves, none. Mastered moves, none. Race value, 180. Health 60. Attack 0. Defense 60. Special attack 0. Special defense 60. Speed 0. Intimacy, 0. Status, normal. Information summary. The prototype of the legendary dragon Blue Eyes White Dragon. Although it has no consciousness and no combat power, it has good defense. Divine plan, the evolution conditions have not been met. It turned out to be this guy. It was not until he saw the last line that Qingliu knew where this thing he summoned came from. In the world of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the wife of one of the main characters, Seto Kaba, is known as the monster with the highest attack power among ordinary monsters, Blue Eyes White Dragon. Although I don't know how it is exactly, in theory it shouldn't be too weak. Based on his memory, Aoyagi tried to combine the levels of the Yu-Gi-Oh world and the Pokemon world to the same level. Blue Eyes White Dragon, a legendary dragon with a white body, is known for its high attack power and destructive power. After all, it has the title of legend. If it is replaced, it should be close to the quasi-god level. Thinking of this, Aoyagi couldn't help but think of many interesting things. The quasi-god three-headed dragon in the Unova region is regarded as the embodiment of evil by people. It is famous for its ferocity and destruction, which can be said to be a perfect match with the destructive power of Blue Eyes White Dragon. What's more interesting is that after the three-headed dragon is fully evolved, it will have 3 heads, and the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon also has 3 heads. The title of the strongest three-headed dragon may really compete with each other. Not only that, the Blue Eyes White Dragon is snow white and is also called the White Dragon. Among the legendary beasts of the Unova region in the Pokemon world, there is also a white dragon, Lashiram. It seems that the Blue Eyes White Dragon and the Unova region are really compatible. The only problem now is that we don't know what level of attack is needed to break the defense and make the Blue Eyes White Dragon appear. Qingliu immediately said to Tyrannosaurus, "Try it first and see if you can break it." Tyrannosaurus heard this request and did not act immediately, but looked at him with a questioning look. It had also come from this passage before, so it could naturally guess that this was probably something extraordinary. Would it be a bit bad to break it directly now? Control the force and try with the sharp claws first. Since Qingliu said so, Tyrannosaurus no longer hesitated, and the orange energy on its claws surged, and it swung towards Shiraishi. Swish! As Tyrannosaurus swung its claws down, a slightly sharp sound rang out. But what people didn't expect was that the place attacked by Tyrannosaurus did not show any signs of being broken, and not even a scratch was seen. It's not that simple. Even if Tyrannosaurus was not in combat mode, this claw would easily break through ordinary rocks, but now it has no effect at all. Combat mode, full power, sharp claws. Tyrannosaurus also saw that this stone was not ordinary, and instantly released the compressed data. Its body suddenly became larger. The huge body over 5 meters long half-crouched and raised its claws again to swing down. Swish! Still unscathed. Battle Dragon Charge, then Super Flame. Since the low-powered ones are useless, just switch to the powerful ones. The violent dragon energy and burning flame surged in Tyrannosaurus, and the woods lit up one after another. Half a minute later, Shiraishi still stood quietly in the same place, without any signs of damage. Seeing this, Tyrannosaurus began to accumulate flames in his mouth, and a fireball far exceeding the super flame quickly condensed. It's not that serious. The stone may not be cracked with this move, but the woods will definitely be cracked. After stopping Tyrannosaurus from using the super blast, Qingliu looked at the white boulder. Since it cannot be destroyed, then don't destroy it. I will find time to study it slowly. The only thing to solve now is how to move this thing away, and how to carry it after moving it away. No matter how big the capsule backpack is, it can't hold such a big thing. And its value is second only to Tyrannosaurus. Qingliu is worried about it no matter where it is placed. Qingliu stared at the panel and fell into deep thought. After a moment, his eyes fell on the normal displayed in the status bar of the illustrated information. If I remember correctly, when the blue coot was still an egg, the information displayed on the panel was unborn, and under normal circumstances, the detected Pokemon are normal or other states, but now it doesn't show that it is unborn, so this thing is not the egg I thought it was. Thinking of this, Qingliu took out a Poké Ball and opened it, and gently knocked it on the white boulder. The next second, a red light came out of the Poké Ball and pulled the white boulder in. Beep, 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 dunk. Looking at the Poké Ball that continued to shake in his hand and finally calmed down, Qingliu smiled. Next, it's the gym. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, Fighting at the Curtain Gym. The Curtain Gym is located next to the woods on the outskirts of Curtain City. When Qingliu walked to the door of the gym, the sky had gradually darkened, and only a little red light from the sunset remained on the horizon. Hello, are you here to challenge the gym? After Qingliu walked to the door, a young man in karate uniform soon approached him. Yes. I'm sorry, because the owner of the Kokugo gym has some personal matters to deal with in the past 3 days, he will not accept the gym challenge for the time being. If you want to get the badge, you can go to the neighboring Binhei city, or come back in 3 days. Hearing this, Qingliu raised a smile at the corner of his mouth. For the 3 days that were agreed upon, even the gym challenge was directly suspended. It seems that this guy is really thinking about the money in his pocket. But it's better this way, so as not to waste too much time. Please tell them that Qingliu is here to challenge as agreed. Qingliu said with a slight bow. Hearing this name that seemed a little familiar, the young man nodded and walked into the gym quickly. A person soon came out of the gym. However, it was not the young man from before, but a barefoot pink-haired girl. How did you come so soon? Have you captured the 3 suitable Pokemon? Ali asked in surprise, and then his eyes fell on the blue bird that had been nesting on Qingliu's head. It's a flying blue bird, but this wave guide should have been born not long ago. Wait, could it be that egg? Qingliu smiled and nodded. Yes, it was accidentally hatched not long after you left. It's really cute, and it's much bigger than ordinary bluebirds. Ali stretched out her hand to tease the blue bird, but there was no response. No matter how she operated, the bluebird remained indifferent, which made Ali wonder if her wave guide was useless. So are you planning to use it as the 3rd Pokemon? Although it does have a great advantage in attributes, it's too difficult to fight. Ali said with some concern. This big guy has already fought with others on the way here. Let him rest for the next gym match. I have other arrangements for the 3rd one. Hearing that Qingliu was prepared, Li breathed a sigh of relief and led the way. I have just sent someone to inform my father. He should be waiting for you at the battle side now. Li put his bare feet on the pebbles, making a slight clacking sound. In addition, considering the size of Tyrannosaurus, I chose the largest one for the battle. There is a lot of space, enough for you to perform. Thank you. Qingliu thanked sincerely. If the venue is too small, although it can be destroyed after it becomes bigger, it is naturally better not to waste that effort. The two soon came to the door of the best building in the gym. Li walked forward and opened the door while saying, I didn't tell my father anything about Tyrannosaurus, so, fight with all your strength, don't hold back. Okay. The door opened, and bright light shone through the door. Qingliu strode in and looked around at the same time. Just as Ali said, this venue is very large, not inferior to some gymnasiums he had visited in his previous life. Not to mention Tyrannosaurus, as long as the Pokemon that comes is not the size of mechanical Tyrannosaurus, there is no problem at all. Kid, why did you come here less than a day ago? Do you know that you have no hope of winning, so you just want to play badly? Across the venue, Kokugo, wearing a loose karate uniform, walked and teased, or do you know that I just had a meal and want to help me with digestion exercises? Qingliu glanced at him. If it weren't for the problem of Tyrannosaurus's moves that needed him to solve, Qingliu really wanted to beat up this guy who affected Tyrannosaurus's mentality, but it wouldn't be too late to beat him after defeating him. As for now, he would just use his mouth to fight with him. You have been nagging since I came in. May I ask if you have your period or are you talking so much during menopause? Kokugo was choked for a moment, and his eyes became unfriendly. I hope you can still be so tough later. I hope you can still say so many words later. Little brat. Kokugo's eyebrows twitched excitedly and he came to the designated position. Qingliu also came to the corresponding position and stood still. Seeing that the two were ready, Li stood at the sidelines and said, the rules are 3-on-3 battles. You can change Pokemon in the middle until one of the Pokemon loses all combat effectiveness and the game ends. Is there any problem? No. No. Qingliu and Kokugo answered one after another. Okay, the battle begins. As Li finished speaking, Kokugo took out a Poké Ball and threw it out. A gray, muscular gorilla with a golden belt hanging around his waist appeared. Seeing this, Qingliu took out the Poké Ball that Li lent him and opened it. Two gorillas with angry eyes suddenly appeared on the field. Gorilla, use key condensation. Gorilla, we also use key condensation. The two gorillas began to breathe deeply and concentrate at the same time. Seeing this, Kokugo sneered, Kid, don't think you have a chance to win by using the same Pokemon. You and I are not trainers of the same level. Guri, charge forward. Ignoring Kokugo, Aoyagi also said, let's charge forward too. The next second, The two Guri took a big step forward and charged at the same time, raising their fists and attacking each other. Bang! Bang! With two muffled sounds, the fists of the two Guri hit the face of the other party at the same time, directly hitting the facial muscles. But even so, both sides had no intention of stopping. Almost at the same time, they raised their other arms and clenched their fists to hit the other side of the face. Bang! Kakugo's Guri's fist hit Aowagi's Guri directly. Stimulated by the pain, Guri swung his fist more fiercely, trying to hit back. But the next second, the fist that had almost touched the opponent's face suddenly missed. Before Guri could react, he felt a blow to his stomach, and a fist hit him hard on the stomach. At this moment, Guri's consciousness was a little blank. Howley, don't be stunned, use the lower body kick. Qingliu's command sounded, and Howley's pupils, which were somewhat scattered, gradually solidified. He raised his foot and swept directly towards the opponent's lower body. But the opponent's Howley jumped up from the spot just when the lower body kick was launched, and dodged the attack very flexibly, while raising his palm to make a downward chopping gesture. Seeing that the opponent's reaction was obviously more flexible, and he was good at dodging and counterattacking, Qingliu knew that this was the difference between systematic training and wild methods. This was seen from the beginning when Li used Lucario to subdue this Howley. There was not much difference in strength, and he was at a disadvantage in skills. If he wanted to make a good counterattack, there was only one way. Block it, and then use revenge. Qingliu's Howley protected his head with both hands, and the brown energy on his body quickly condensed. The next second, the tile-splitting attack came and landed heavily on Howley's arm. A sharp pain came, and Howley could not maintain his standing posture in an instant. He was directly hit by this force and knelt on one knee, trembling all over, but at least he blocked this attack. Then, the revenge move was activated. A terrifying force far exceeding the tile-splitting force just now instantly shone from Howley's body and reflected back towards Kakugo's Howley. But whether it was Howley who was nearby or Kakugo who was far away, they seemed to have not seen it, and just stood still and took the blow. Boom! 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 Howley retreated in succession, and after 3 steps, he forced his body to stop. His side face, which was raised high by the revenge move, slowly turned back. Blood mixed with snot flowed out of his nose, but there was no expression of pain on Howley's face, but a ferocious look. Howley, million-ton punch. Bang! With a muffled sound, Qingliu's Howley was instantly punched several meters away and fell to the ground for a long time without getting up. Gully lost a battle, Kakugo's Gully won. As the referee Ollie's voice fell, Kakugo immediately sneered, "Kid, the gap between us seems to be a bit big in terms of speed, strength, reaction and resistance to blows. It's not enough for my Gully to fight." How? Kakugo's Gully in the field also showed a smug look on his face, stretched out his palm and hooked his finger at Qingliu, full of provocation. Qingliu watched quietly without saying a word. He was not surprised that Gully would lose. The opponent's Gully level was higher in the panel data, and the fighting skills in the battle were more skilled. Losing was certain. It would be strange if he really won. Gully's greatest tactical value is to confirm what Pokemon Kakugo would use and provide information to Qingliu to facilitate the designation of tactics. Although he didn't like Kakugo, he would not deny the strength of a gym trainer who once challenged the 4 Heavenly Kings. He had never fought with a trainer of this strength, and he couldn't guarantee whether Tyrannosaurus could sweep past him. He had to make every effort to prepare for this unknown situation. Because the opponent will definitely make some arrangements against Tyrannosaurus, so we must be careful. But the two guys are so proud now, they really deserve a beating. Since you said your power is so strong, then let's see if you can beat this. Qingliu took out the Poké Ball containing the legendary White Stone and threw it out. Also, when writing Chapter 90, Legend of Shiraishi's First Battle. A flash of red light passed, and the Poké Ball opened. A brown boulder nearly 2 meters high and 1 meter wide appeared in the field. This instantly attracted Kakugo's attention. What is this? With a simple glance, Kakugo's mind flashed all the information about Pokemon that might be related. Rumblestone or Rumble Rock? The giant rock monster in the Unova region, or the rock crab? Then Kakugo quickly denied these thoughts. The size of these is completely inconsistent with the oval guy in front of me, and it seems that there is no trace of life. Could it be a stone? No, since it came out of the Poké Ball, it must be a Pokemon. A series of thoughts flashed through his mind, and finally Kakugo decided to test the waters. Little boy, after all, I am the elder. This time I will let you attack first, so as not to accuse me of bullying you. Qingliu glanced at him lightly and said, that's not what you said just now. Did you change your mind so quickly? Or are you afraid? Seeing that he couldn't get any useful information, Qingliu immediately gave up this plan and started to attack. It looks like it's close to the rock, so fighting types have the advantage. Even if he made a wrong judgment, he believed that the Pokemon he cultivated had the ability to solve it. Golly, use Tile Break. Howl! Golly roared, and after his palm turned into a knife, he jumped up and rushed to Shiraishi and chopped it down hard. Bang! With a muffled sound, the moment the Tile Break hit the stone, a gust of wind blew up on the surface of the stone. Then, Golly withdrew his palm with some pain, looking at the side that was already red, his eyes full of anger. This guy's defense is so strong that he can't even resist Golly's Tile Break. Qingliu was a little surprised and decided to try again. Golly, change position and do another Tile Break. Golly's right arm was filled with fighting type energy again, and he chopped it down again in the opposite direction of the attack position just now. Bang! Another muffled sound. Shiraishi didn't move, and Golly withdrew his arm again, which was red and swollen due to the reaction force. Brick splitting has no effect, which means it's not a rock type, so could it be a ground type? Qingliu made a judgment in his mind and quickly said, use Ice Fist. Haoli immediately raised his left hand, which was not intact, and hit the white stone hard with a little cold white air. The moment it hit, the cold air rushed along Haoli's arm to the surface of the white stone, freezing the entire area touched by the fist. It works. Qingliu was immediately excited. Haoli, use Ice Fist continuously. Wow! Haoli roared immediately. In order to vent his anger for being beaten twice in a row, regardless of whether his right hand was injured, he raised it directly and used Ice Fist alternately with his left hand, punching one after another. The cold air and ice on the white stone spread and covered it at a speed visible to the naked eye, until a quarter of the area was completely frozen. Qingliu watched this scene quietly. Although the white stone is a dragon type and was hit by Qingliu's ice type move, it was a bit unrealistic to expect to break the defense just like this. Before, Tyrannosaurus, who had used all his strength, used Tyrannosaurus, which was also a dragon type, to charge at white stone, but it still failed to make a crack in the stone. In terms of power, Golly's ice punch was still a little behind. Qingliu also discovered this problem soon. You know, with a Pokemon as strong as Golly and so many punches, even a huge rock can be easily smashed into pieces. But now, no matter how many times Golly's fists landed, the stone did not react at all, and there was no crack. This made him feel a little wrong. The attributes seem a bit strange. There are no skills or moves. Then it can only use pure strength? In this case, Qingliu took back Golly and then threw another Poké Ball. A huge rhinoceros beetle with a blue-black body landed steadily in the middle of the field. Qingliu's eyes fell on it, and the panel illustration opened. Race, Heracris, Classification, One-Horned Pokemon, Attributes, Bug, Fighting, Features, Bug Premonition. When its health drops to 1/3, the power of its Bug-type moves increases. Level 28. Exclusive moves, none. Mastered moves, Push, Smash, Hold On, Sword Dance, Swallow Return, Bug Pounce, Super Horn Attack. Race value, 500, Horsepower 80, Attack 125, Defense 75, Special Attack 40, Special Defense 95, Speed 85, Intimacy, 0, Status, Normal. Information summary, it has a gentle personality, but will use its huge horns to drive away enemies when it is disturbed while eating or encounters them. It is a Pokemon known for its extraordinary strength, as well as being able to uproot trees and easily lift objects that are more than 100 times its body weight. Horizontal ellipsis. Are you planning to use brute force? Seeing Qingliu send out Heracris, Aoyagi suddenly felt a surge of anticipation. Combining the panel recommendation and the power performance of Heracris in his memory, if he could really use his horn and strange power to break the legendary White Stone, it would save him a lot of time. In comparison, the win or loss of this second game was not so important. So, come on, big bug with a horn. Under Qingliu's expectant eyes, Qingliu let Heracris launch an attack. Flapping his wings, he quickly approached the White Stone, raised his horn, and directly hit it with a bug fighting move. Then, regardless of the results, Heracris, who landed, stretched out his arms and pushed hard. Bang! 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 4 dull impact sounds rang out. Seeing that the boulder showed signs of shaking a little, Heracross's eyes instantly became sharp, and he folded his hands across his chest and raised his right shoulder, and hit it heavily with an iron mountain lean. Bang! Since his appearance, the white stone has shaken violently for the first time. Qingliu showed a look of joy on his face, and then turned his eyes to Qingliu. At this moment, he was eager to see some ugly expressions on his face. But when he saw Qingliu's expression clearly, he was a little unresponsive for a while. What the hell is this look of expectation and excitement? If someone who didn't know saw this scene, he might think that Heracross was Qingliu's Pokemon, and he had the upper hand. Forget it, anyway, a guy who spends more than 100,000 to pursue a unique Pokemon is not normal in the first place. Qingliu said immediately, Heracross, Super Horn Attack. As the voice fell, Heracross in the field soared into the air, and the big horns on his head lit up with dazzling light. With the acceleration of diving down from the sky, it stabbed heavily on the white stone. Bang! An unprecedented violent collision sound wrapped in energy instantly set off an explosion. At the same time, a wave of air centered on the center of the battlefield was like a ripple and spread to the surroundings. Qingliu's arms assisted his eyes, staring at the center of the battlefield, feeling a little uneasy. When the smoke gradually dissipated and the figure became clearer, Qingliu's face collapsed from expectation in an instant. The big horn of Heracross, which was so aggressive just now, pierced the middle of the white stone and turned it over. But even so, there was still no sign of breaking the defense. I really expected it in vain. Qingliu sighed. But isn't this hardness a bit too much? Even the stone that summoned the Blue Eyes White Dragon is not so hard. Is it because the summoned white stone is not ordinary, or are these brown stones covering the surface of the white stone that block the brilliance also from a simple origin? The answer that Qingliu couldn't guess, Qingliu couldn't guess either. He didn't expect that even the insect-type ultimate move of Super Horn Attack couldn't cause enough damage. This made him feel incredible and confused. All attacks are ineffective, and brute force can't break it. Such a strong defense, but there is no counterattack. There are so many opportunities. Qingliu looked at the white stone in the field and frowned slowly. It seemed that this thing had not made any movement since it appeared on the stage. It had been motionless all the time, as if it was a dead object. Or was it originally a dead object? The more Qingliu observed, the more he felt something was wrong, and he immediately signaled the referee to check the specific status of the opponent. Qingliu had already taken out the Poké Ball at this time, and took back the direct Shiraishi before he could speak. Although this thing was indeed classified as a Pokemon by the panel, Qingliu didn't know whether others would admit that this Pokemon, which could only defend but not attack, had no consciousness, and no one knew about it except himself, was a real Pokemon, but Qingliu on the opposite side would definitely not admit it. After all, without consciousness, it would fall into Schrodinger's state of whether it had fainted or not after being attacked. At that time, according to normal rules, it might be a draw, and it was more likely to be a loss. In this case, it would be better to stop while it was ahead. Moreover, the effect created by Shiraishi had far exceeded Qingliu's expectations. While consuming a lot of Garai's physical strength, it confirmed that the second one was Heracross, and also consumed part of its physical strength. Now Qingliu only has one unknown Pokemon in its prime. That's enough. Now I'll leave it to Tyrannosaurus. The third update is over. Unfortunately, the number of words in these 2 chapters is enough to write 3 chapters at normal times, but I haven't reached the real climax yet. I'll continue with 3 updates tomorrow. Chapter 91, 1 vs. 2. The Vale Gym is in the middle of the 8 mainstream gyms, with the average Pokemon level around 30. The second-tier Heracross in front of him is level 28, and the other second-tier monster is also level 28. After crushing the Onyx tribe, Regi's 4 Pokemon, and later training undefeatingly, Tyrannosaurus is now level 23. There is a gap of 5 levels between it and Qingliu's 2 Pokémons, so it can be said that there is a big disadvantage in terms of level, but the level and race value cannot represent combat power, nor can they determine victory or defeat. If it were another Pokemon, it might be a little difficult to fight, but now his trump card is Tyrannosaurus, one of the first batch of mature Digimon in the world. Aoyagi is confident that Tyrannosaurus can deal with these 2. The only thing to pay attention to is Qingliu's 3rd Pokemon that has not appeared, and Aoyagi turned his head to look at Tyrannosaurus. At this moment, it stared at Heracross opposite it, as if it had already prepared for battle. But Qingliu could feel that Tyrannosaurus's state of mind and state were affected by Kikugo's words. From a tactical point of view, Kikugo did a great job, but from the impact of this incident on Tyrannosaurus, Qingliu was very unhappy. The key is that this kind of thing cannot be avoided, because even if he knows that as long as Tyrannosaurus is high enough to evolve into Battle Greymon, it can make a name for itself in the Pokemon world with its own exclusive moves, but Tyrannosaurus does not know. It has never seen its own ultimate form, and does not know how terrifying the ultimate form's combat power can be. No creature can understand something it has never seen. What it can understand is that it took more than a week to learn the required moves and was judged to be forever stopped. This has nothing to do with courage. This is the confusion that all intelligent life will encounter on the road of life, just like the dark Battle Greymon born from the fusion of 100 dark towers is always looking for itself. It is inevitable. Tyrannosaurus has seen many different things since it was summoned. Now it is confused, and it is time for its human body of the sacred plan to play a role. Use absolute strength to quickly defeat the two opponents in front of you, and then defeat the third one, so that Kikugo can come up with a solution to the problem. If he dares to lie to me, then I will tear down his gym. Finally you came out. After I get rid of you, this battle will be over. Kikugo saw Tyrannosaurus appearing on the field, and he no longer cared about what happened to the stone just now. Anyway, after defeating this one, the overall situation would be decided. After all, a stone that would not attack did not pose any threat. Heracross, charge, insect pounce. Heracross flapped his wings and pounced on Tyrannosaurus at high speed. Get out of the way. Tyrannosaurus in his normal state was petite and more agile. As soon as Heracross's pounce approached, he dodged it. Push. Seeing that the attack was dodged, Kikugo immediately gave the order to continue the attack. Heracross landed and stretched out his arms, took a step forward, and began to push continuously. Tyrannosaurus then retreated. Heracross took a step forward, and Tyrannosaurus took a step back. After 5 consecutive attacks failed, Heracross suddenly sank and raised his huge horn. Attack! Kikugo said, and Heracross waved his horn, attacking like raindrops in an instant. This time Tyrannosaurus did not dodge, but went straight forward, stretched out his claws and grabbed Heracross's horn to stop its movement. This surprised Kikugo, and he smiled. Then he immediately waved his hand and issued an order. Heracross, use the super horn attack to pick this guy up. If he lets go now, just hit him directly. Hey Yukuru! Heracross roared in a low voice, stepped firmly on the ground with his legs, and the horn on his head lit up white light while he suddenly exerted force, instantly picking up Tyrannosaurus, who was holding the horn tightly. Seeing this, Kikugo laughed and said, "Little brat, you dared to let it defend like this, you really know nothing about power. Today I will let you learn a lot, Heracross." Before Kikugo finished speaking, Qingliu interrupted directly, "It is you who should learn a lot, Tyrannosaurus, enter combat mode." The moment the voice fell, the sacred plan decompressed the data, and Tyrannosaurus instantly grew from more than 1 meter in height to more than 5 meters. This sudden change in size and weight instantly dropped the body that had just been lifted by Heracross back to the ground. And the originally petite claws also turned back to the same size as Heracross at this moment. Tyrannosaurus grabbed it, hit it hard on his head, and smashed it directly to the ground. Heracross, hold on. After being hit hard one after another, Heracross was injured all over his body and his head was dizzy, but his momentum was getting stronger and stronger. While holding on and forcibly extending his life, because his physical strength was almost at its limit, the characteristic insect premonition was activated, and his powerful momentum began to emerge. But before it could fully gain momentum, a huge fireball fell from the sky, and the flames enveloped Heracross without giving him any time to react. With his weak fire attribute and little remaining strength, Heracross fell to the ground in an instant under the scorching flames. Heracross has lost his ability to fight, and Aoyagi's Tyrannosaurus wins. The voice of Ali's verdict sounded. The first one. Aoyagi said lightly. Hearing this, Kikugo's face turned ugly in an instant. This slap in the face came too quickly, and it was over without giving him time to react. Who knew that this guy's body size could change so much in an instant, and he didn't transform directly when he appeared, but hid his clumsiness and seized the opportunity to kill with one blow. It's really a troublesome kid, but I still say that using brute force and tricks alone is just a side path after all. Without flexible and changeable moves, you will never go far. Qingliu immediately threw out Galli's Poké Ball. Golly, use Frozen Punch. Howl. Golly, who appeared again, raised his fist that exuded coldness and hit with all his strength. Flame Fist. Tyrannosaurus clenched his claws without showing any weakness. His arms were shrouded in flames, and he clashed with the Ice Fist. Ice and fire collided, and a white mist instantly enveloped the surroundings. The next second, a powerful fist pierced through the white mist and blasted directly at Tyrannosaurus. Million-ton punch. Use your head to hit it. Tyrannosaurus immediately lowered his head and took the blow head-on. Bang! A dull sound of blows rang out in the field. Thanks to its hard shell, Tyrannosaurus was not injured, but the strong impact still made it step back several steps. Use the retreat to rotate your body, and then use your dragon tail to fan it. Tyrannosaurus suddenly stopped with its big feet, stepped out a pit in the ground, and used it as a fulcrum to rotate its body. The dark blue dragon energy wrapped around its tail and fanned it out at Goriok. Although the energy quickly dissipated, the huge body and powerful strength still knocked Goriok out in a defensive posture. Continuous Fire, Super Flame. Tyrannosaurus opened its mouth and fired fireballs one after another like countless meteorites falling from the sky. In an instant, the temperature of the entire venue rose. Golly, run and dodge. This kind of attack will definitely not last long. Qingliu quickly issued an order. This kind of move, which looks very powerful, must be a heavy burden on physical strength. Unless it is a Pokemon at the level of the 4 Heavenly Kings or Champions, it will definitely not be able to withstand such consumption. However, before he finished speaking, he saw, amid Golly's surprise, dozens of fireballs densely packed on the field, covering Golly and half of the field. Aowagi's voice followed. The second one. There are still 2 chapters to go, and I'm so excited about the climax. Chapter 92 Tyrannosaurus's Persistence. The next second, all the super flames fell. Boom. Almost instantly, a wave of heat swept across, blowing Qingliu and Qingliu back several meters, and the unprepared Lee was directly knocked to the ground by the air wave. Is this the real fighting power of Tyrannosaurus? Looking at the half of the field that was bombed into a mess, Lee swallowed his saliva with a solemn expression. And Haoli in the field had already fallen to the ground, turning into a circle of eyes. Qingliu took Haoli back with a cold face, staring at Tyrannosaurus, who had almost no signs of panting, and his face was gloomy for a while. At this point, even if I don't want to admit it, you little brat and your Pokemon do have good strength. I misjudged you. Qingliu took out a Poké Ball and said coldly, but this doesn't mean I'm wrong. Without flexible moves, the upper limit is only that level after all. I have proved this with myself. The more he talked, the more excited Qingliu became. At the same time, he threw out a Poké Ball, and a Pokemon that stood up appeared in front of him. Lucario. Father. What are you doing? Ollie, who was acting as the referee, asked. So, what do you mean by this? Looking at the level 48 displayed on the panel, which was the Lucario that he met in the game city that day, Qingliu slowly looked at Qingliu. In the challenge rules that were agreed upon before, it was clearly stated that the first-tier Pokemon would not be used for gym competitions, but now they have gone back on their words. I did say that, but the situation is different now. Your level is far beyond the level of a rookie, and I must show some real strength. So you went back on your word and took out the main Lucario. Qingliu didn't have any shame on his face, and said, you borrowed Howley from Ollie, and I don't know where you got a Pokemon that can't move at all, and it may even be unconscious, to fight. Did you abide by the basic rules of the battle? Qingliu took a deep breath and his eyes gradually narrowed. When borrowing Howley that day, Ollie said that Qingliu didn't know about Howley, so how did he know it now? It is impossible for Lee to disclose such a thing and conceal the size and combat power of Tyrannosaurus, which has a greater impact on him. So there is only one possibility, Wave Guide. You only think about Tyrannosaurus and forget the wave power that Lucario possesses. Qingliu looked at Qingliu and said, first of all, the rules of the Alliance battle do not say that it is not allowed to borrow Pokemon. Secondly, the fact that it can be put into the Poké Ball shows that it has no problem and belongs to a Pokemon. So don't try to divert your problem through things within the rules. You don't think it is very glorious to do so. Of course, it makes sense. Money is one aspect, and on the other hand, I want to show you what real skills and moves are. Fighting should never be solved by brute force. At this point, Qingliu coughed twice and said, "Of course, I won't bully you like this. I will let Lucario use Wave Guide to suppress its level and control it to the level of Heroic and Heracris. Is that okay?" As soon as the voice fell, the breath of Lucario on the opposite side instantly weakened a lot. Qingliu stared at the panel. Although the column of Lucario's level did not change, the status column did show that the combat power was declining at that moment, which was equal to the aura of Howley and Heracris at around level 30. He did not expect that Badeo could really do this. It seemed fair on the surface. But it was only an appearance. Many things could not be solved by controlling the level. Whether it was the improved physical fitness or the powerful moves mastered, these were all things that Badeo could not suppress. A guy like you who has no integrity only makes me feel sick. So there is no room for negotiation. Qingliu spread his hands like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water, and said, "Since this is the end of the gym competition, you can pack up and go back. I am very disappointed with the monitoring mechanism of the Sinnoh League for the fact that gym trainers like you can still exist. Kid, are you going to fight or not?" Qingliu stared at Qingliu for a moment, then his eyes fell on Lucario, and after a moment of silence, he prepared to leave with Tyrannosaurus. "Now it's nothing more than wasting some precious time, and I will try to find it again somewhere else later." Ali said that there were not many people in the Sinnoh region who could solve this problem, but there were always people who could. Serona was a good choice, and the 4 Heavenly Kings and Champions in other regions should also be able to do it. If it really doesn't work, at worst, we can find an opportunity to go to the Ulala region to find Professor Kukui, who specializes in Pokemon moves. Greymon, we. Before Qingliu finished speaking, Greymon, who had always been quiet and never took the initiative to speak in front of others, directly said to Qingliu on the opposite side, "Human, answer me, do you have any way to solve the problem that I can't learn moves?" Hearing the voice suddenly, Qingliu was stunned for a moment before reacting. He looked at Greymon standing not far away in surprise, and a smile rose at the corner of his mouth. "Yes. Okay." After that, Greymon took a big step back, turned around and stared straight at Qingliu. Greymon didn't say anything, but Qingliu understood what he meant from his scarlet eyes. Win the fight, and then solve the problem. If you can't win or get cheated, then make another plan. Anyway, the barefoot are not afraid of the shoes, and you won't lose anyway. Qingliu took a breath and exhaled slowly, finally shaking his head helplessly. "First it was the bluebird, then you. You 2 guys acted on your own and are sincerely against me, right?" The bluebird above his head heard this and immediately raised his head and made a chee-chee-chee sound to express his dissatisfaction. Qingliu ignored it, but looked at Tyrannosaurus and said, "3 times is the limit." Tyrannosaurus nodded heavily. "Okay." Qingliu then looked at Qingliu on the opposite side and said, "Old man, you wait for me. No matter whether I win or lose in the end, I promise to burn your gym to the ground before tomorrow." Tyrannosaurus, Super Flame. "You should worry about yourself first, Lucario, Vacuum Wave." Tyrannosaurus opened his mouth and spit out a fireball, while Lucario took a horse stance and punched out. Suddenly, a wave of air blasted out, breaking up the Super Flame from the middle. Then, he pulled out a white bone stick with his hands together, and came to Tyrannosaurus in a few flashes. The bone stick pierced Tyrannosaurus' chest. Flame Fist, Flame Fang. Flames ignited on his fists and fangs, and Tyrannosaurus began to attack Lucario fearlessly. He used his claws to hit where his claws could reach, and used his mouth to bite where his claws could not reach. Although he could not catch up with Lucario's flexibility, his huge body also meant a larger attack range. For a while, various energy collisions sounded. Steel is resistant to Dragon-type moves, but weak to Fire-type moves. We need to find an opportunity. Qingliu looked at Tyrannosaurus who was fighting madly with Lucario, and began to look for the possibility of victory. Because even if the level was suppressed, this was a level 48 Lucario after all, more than twice the level of Tyrannosaurus, and it was also the strongest opponent he and Tyrannosaurus had ever encountered. Chapter 93 Excitement. Even though the Digimon's combat power far exceeds that of Pokemon at the same time, with such a huge gap, even if Qingliu is confident, he doesn't think he can win as easily as before. This can be seen from the fact that Tyrannosaurus gradually fell into disadvantage and was hit several times in a row by Lucario's Bone Club. And not only was the number of attacks increasing, Qingliu also discovered another problem. That is, the movements and skills of this Lucario far exceeded any he had seen before, whether it was Lee's Lucario, or the previous two, Haoli and Heracris, they might not even be worthy of carrying its shoes. The practical skills that Tyrannosaurus learned from Lee had no effect at this moment, because Lucario's skills were more sophisticated. After a wave of heavy attacks from the Bone Club and the Fire Fist, Lucario directly abandoned it, jumped up in front of Tyrannosaurus, and his fist turned into a meteor and hit Tyrannosaurus directly. Steel-type moves, Comet Punch. Fire Fist. Tyrannosaurus clenched his claws and directly confronted him. But unlike the previous head-on confrontation, when the fists of both sides were getting closer and closer, Lucario suddenly stopped and fell from the air. While dodging the flame fist of Tyrannosaurus, his fist turned into a meteor and shot up into the sky again, hitting Tyrannosaurus. Bang! The extremely fast speed and huge force made even the thick-skinned Tyrannosaurus look painful. As he staggered backwards, his body suddenly rotated, and his thick tail slapped directly over, slapping Lucario, who was about to rush forward again. This is just the beginning, kid. Lucario, use Sword Dance while rushing forward. Lucario twisted his body and began to sprint in a very strange posture, while his whole body was burning with a fierce and powerful momentum. Stop it from getting close, and use Super Flame continuously. Qingliu said quickly. Since it is easy to fall into disadvantages if you get close to it, don't let it get close, and directly use moves to cover it. Tyrannosaurus opened his mouth, and one fireball after another spewed out, starting a carpet bombing. Almost every Super Flame, which was the same size as Lucario, exploded on the field. Lucario's hands flashed with light, and he spun his bone stick to meet the attack, and his speed instantly slowed down. Kid, no matter how strong you are, I don't believe you can last long. Although he was ahead in combat power, skills, and number of moves, he was suppressed by this damn firepower for a while, and Kokugo couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Qingliu ignored these voices and looked at Tyrannosaurus and commanded him, Tyrannosaurus, charge up, prepare for Super Blast. Super Blast, Power 90, transformed from the small blast during evolution, numerically close to the power of the Jet Flame in the Pokemon world, the specific lethality is equal to or even higher. Since the evolution, this is the first time that Qingliu has let Tyrannosaurus use this reality. Like the small blast during the Agumon period, this move is more physically demanding, and Qingliu doesn't want to use it unless it is necessary. But now, he has to use it. Tyrannosaurus nodded, stepped heavily on the ground with both legs, took a deep breath, and then one after another flames quickly condensed in his mouth, and finally compressed into a giant fireball that was much larger than the Super Flame. At this time, Lucario had already picked up all the fireballs flying towards it and came close. Fire! Tyrannosaurus roared, and the giant fireball condensed by the super explosion burst out. Almost in an instant, the temperature of the entire venue rose sharply. Facing this attack, Lucario's expression became visibly solemn. Lucario, use Dragon Wave. Lucario also took a deep breath, and the appendages behind his ears floated up. The wave power accurately controlled the dark blue dragon energy to condense in his mouth. The next second, Lucario opened his mouth, and a terrifying energy beam sprayed out, and in an instant, it hit the attacking super explosion. Boom! The red fire energy and the dark blue dragon energy collided wildly, and fierce explosions came one after another, and the echoes in the building continued. At the center of the field, the situation was tense. Qingliu faced the raging wind and squinted his eyes to look at the center of the battlefield. Very good, as long as we can be even, we can probably use Super Blast twice, no rush. Lucario, who was suppressed to level 30, was very strong in many aspects. The fact that he could kill the two Tyrannosaurus of the same level in seconds was the best proof, but this did not mean that Tyrannosaurus's killing move was weaker than it. I don't believe that the Steel-type Lucario could withstand it in a head-on attack. At this moment, Kokugo on the opposite side had an extremely gloomy face. It was fine that his physical strength was like a monster and he could use so many powerful moves in a row, but now he actually had a move that was even more terrifying than the one just now. At this moment, he felt that the words he had said before were like slaps in his face. Even if such a Pokemon really couldn't learn other moves, perhaps the upper limit would not be too high, but it would definitely not be lower than the 4 Heavenly Kings, and at least it would be much stronger than when he was young. But if that's the case, then doesn't his change over the years mean that it's not that Lu is not good, but that his own level is limited? No, that's impossible. Recalling those unbearable memories in his mind, Kokugo's breathing became heavy, and his voice became hoarse. Lucario. Use Dragon Wave with all your strength. Lucario on the field heard this, turned his head and glanced at Qingliu with his peripheral vision, sighed softly, and then his eyes became firm, and the aura on his body rose steadily. The power of Dragon Wave surged instantly, and the originally stalemate was broken. The Super Blast almost collapsed instantly. Despite this, Tyrannosaurus had no intention of compromising. He raised his head and fired a second Super Blast, but it still didn't have much effect. The terrifying energy exploded in the center of the battlefield. The first to bear the brunt was Tyrannosaurus. This kind of power. Qingliu quickly glanced at it and said quickly, "Tyrannosaurus, put all your energy into the next Super Blast." Tyrannosaurus looked at the direction of the explosion and quickly mobilized all his energy to activate the third Super Blast. The fire energy quickly took shape and turned into a giant fireball and flew out, colliding head-on with the Dragon Wave. The next second, boom! The terrifying sound and air wave burst out and swept around the venue. Qingliu did not expect that this attack would have such a strong aftermath, so he quickly took out 2 Poké Balls, took back the blue bird, and took a few big steps forward, aiming the Poké Ball at Tyrannosaurus and forcibly taking it back into the ball. The next second, the terrifying shock wave instantly swept around, and a big pit was blasted out in the center of the battlefield. The whole building was shaking, and even Qingliu, who was standing far away, was directly blown away by the air wave. For a moment, the whole venue fell into a relatively quiet silence. "Father, you are too much?" Seeing this scene, the angrily roared loudly. Qingliu didn't seem to expect it to turn out like this. His chest rose and fell rapidly without saying anything, and he gradually fell silent. Seeing this, the Lucario in the field jumped to a place not far from Lee and said, "Lee, his wave guide is still very stable. The most important thing is to go and see there." Before he finished speaking, the 2 Lucaria seemed to have sensed something and looked back suddenly. At the place where Qingliu was originally standing, a crisp sound of a Poké Ball opening was heard, and Tyrannosaurus reappeared at some point. In the smoke and dust several meters high, a pair of huge eyes emitted a creepy blood-red light, and a terrifying breath broke out of the cocoon. Chapter 94 Violent Evolution. When Tyrannosaurus first came into contact with the moves, he learned from Qingliu that these seemingly insignificant small moves could bring huge effects. Special attack moves make up for the single long-range attack method of Super Flame. Physical attack moves strengthen close combat capabilities and expand the attack range, and change moves directly buff yourself. As long as it is a suitable or useful move, it is necessary to learn or master it. In Qingliu's words, these moves will eventually act on its own exclusive skills, and the fusion of the two will achieve a stronger power. Hearing Qingliu say this, it was very happy that it could become stronger again, so it was fully focused during training and was particularly hard-working. Even at night, when resting and waiting for Qingliu to fall asleep, it would secretly practice alone nearby. But things did not go as planned. Except for those few moves, the progress of learning all other moves was stagnant. It also tried to watch the move CD to learn moves of other attributes. If one way doesn't work, then try another way. But in the end, it proved that all the ways were different. But it didn't want to give up. Later, it met Lee and Lucario. It was as happy as Qingliu and thought it had found a solution, but the result was cruel, until it met Qingliu. Although this human gave it a very obvious feeling of disbelief, it seemed that he was the only one who had the ability to solve its own problems. There was no way, and it had to believe it. Tyrannosaurus could guess that Qingliu probably thought so. The fact was just as it felt. This human went back on his words and didn't say a word of truth. It was not afraid of being deceived by others, nor was it afraid that the other party would think it was a reckless man who only used brute force, nor was it afraid that the other party would say that it had a low upper limit and no future, or that it was not afraid of many things in this world. It was afraid that it was weak and could not help Qingliu. In the end, it ended up with a situation where it had a determination to face a strong enemy but did not have the fighting power to cause damage to the strong enemy. As it said before, it could feel that Qingliu would be a very different person in the future. The channel that summoned it, the dragon egg that it could not destroy even if it was summoned, all proved this. If he can't learn more moves, doesn't have enough attack range, and doesn't reach a higher ceiling, one day he will be separated from this only important friend who wants to go on with him. Maybe he doesn't want to, and Qingliu doesn't want to, but this will definitely happen. His brain is not enough, But since he came to this world and stayed with Qingliu, he still learned a lot of things. Many things are not a matter of wanting or not wanting, because they all just disappeared and separated silently in infinite peace. Therefore, facing Kokugo, a human with a bad record, Tyrannosaurus still has a glimmer of luck in his heart. Maybe after this time, he will keep his promise and help him solve the problem. As long as the problem is solved, he will be able to improve his strength again on the existing basis and reach a higher level, until he becomes the powerful ultimate form that Qingliu said he would be in the future. With this glimmer of luck, he did something contrary to Qingliu's opinion for the second time. But Tyrannosaurus looked at Qingliu, who had just been helped to the wall by him, and his scarlet eyes couldn't stop shaking violently. It was clear that when Qingliu would rather starve than feed it a fruit twice, he had already made up his mind that as long as he was alive, he would protect him and not let him get hurt. But now, because of his persistence, an accident happened. Because of his luck, Qingliu is now injured. Because of his incompetence, the situation has developed like this. Because Tyrannosaurus turned around, his eyes, which were already red as if they were about to bleed, looked through the smoke and dust at Kokugo standing opposite. It was all because of this damn human. It no longer cared about recklessness, courage, and other things. At this moment, it just wanted to destroy everything. Roar. With a roar that shook the earth, Tyrannosaurus began to run. At the same time, wounds appeared all over its body, and bright red blood oozed out from the cracks, spilling all over the ground without caring about its life. Tyrannosaurus, however, seemed to feel no pain and began to run at high speed. The huge body came to Kokugo in a few jumps, with flames burning in its mouth and biting him on the head mixed with blood. Seeing this, Lucario next to him immediately jumped up and blocked it with his bone stick. Calm down, don't be like this. You accomplice. Ignoring the injuries on his body and the blood flowing out of his body with every movement, Tyrannosaurus slapped Lucario and sent him flying. But soon, Lucario rushed back again, and with its arms raised, the wave power turned into a barrier to block Tyrannosaurus's way forward. At the same time, Lucario raised his two arms and quickly fired wave missiles that were fused with rich wave power, blasting Tyrannosaurus back. Every time Tyrannosaurus retreated, it would leave pools of bright red blood on the ground. After retreating more than 10 steps, the surface of the original battlefield was covered with a layer of red blood plasma. After the blood was drained out, Tyrannosaurus' eyes gradually became dull, and his seemingly shriveled body stopped moving, standing still in the same place. Seeing this, Lucario breathed a sigh of relief. This time, the matter has really gotten out of hand. It doesn't know how to report Kokugo to the Alliance, how to face Ali, or how to face the boy. Then, it mobilized the wave power to check the status of Tyrannosaurus first, and collect the blood that was spilled around. Although it looks like it has no hope of saving, it should at least try. But just as the wave power was covering it, the body that had lost its breath of life began to tremble strangely. In the eye socket, the originally loose eyes suddenly opened, staring at itself without spirit, and then slowly fell on Kokugo. Just when Lucario was shocked and a little frightened by the strange scene in front of him, the wave power that originally covered the entire field to collect blood and clean up the battlefield suddenly seemed to have touched something terrifying, and all trembled uncontrollably. The shriveled Tyrannosaurus suddenly seemed to be resurrected and began to twist its body gently. At the same time, the blood spilled on the ground began to bead and boil, turning into red light that swept around, instantly dyeing the entire building a depressing red, and finally gathered on Tyrannosaurus. The next second, a cold and tyrannical aura that seemed to come from the world of death, filled with extreme discomfort, came crashing down. Chapter 95 Zombie Tyrannosaurus. Buzz. A buzzing sound suddenly sounded in the air. The red light transformed from blood on Tyrannosaurus became brighter and more bizarre, and in an instant it flew through the building and soared into the sky. Its originally shriveled body began to twist and deform in this oppressive atmosphere. Such a scene stunned everyone present. Is this the light of evolution? Kokugo looked at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but be a little shocked. Lucario was also shocked. He hesitated for a moment after using the wave guide to detect it and replied, according to the wave guide and the breath on its body, it is indeed a change that only occurs when it evolves, but how could it still have the ability to evolve in that state just now? The blood in its body sprayed out, and there was no sign of life on its body. It was almost like a dried corpse with only a skeleton left. But it was just in such a situation that it was almost certain to be dead, and Tyrannosaurus suddenly evolved. But then Kokugo discovered a new problem. Aren't the evolution lights of Pokemon generally all white? Even if there are some special evolutions and morphological changes, they should be bright colors like blue and green. But what happened to Tyrannosaurus now was a thick and oppressive red light, and it was the red color transformed from the blood that just flowed out of its body. Such a scene could not help but make Qingliu and Lucario feel nervous. Such a scene was too weird. As this strange evolutionary light lit up, Tyrannosaurus' body changed significantly. Compared with ordinary Pokemon, its body size was already huge, and it seemed to be grabbed by an invisible hand and then pulled around desperately. As the red light spread, Tyrannosaurus' body size had exceeded twice its original size, reaching 10 meters. Looking at this sudden huge change, Qingliu and Lucario immediately took a fighting stance and began to silently use sword dance to accumulate momentum. But then, something happened that they didn't expect. Tyrannosaurus had not stopped, and its evolution was still continuing. The size of the creature, which had already exceeded 10 meters, surged again, crossing the 10-meter limit in one fell swoop, and skyrocketed upwards until the sharp horn on the top of its head, which originally belonged to Tyrannosaurus, had already pierced through the ceiling of the battlefield before it finally stopped changing. At this moment, Tyrannosaurus's current posture came into view. This is a super large creature that is over 14 meters tall. Except for the huge red heart beating in its chest, there is not a single flesh-related part on its body. It is made entirely of huge dinosaur-like bones. Just as its current name, a Tyrannosaurus that looks like a zombie Tyrannosaurus. Compared to the Tyrannosaurus stage, zombie Tyrannosaurus has skyrocketed to more than 10 meters in height. The three sharp horns on the huge skull without flesh and blood have merged into a single horn. The bony mouth covered with fine fangs is wide open, and the dark green eyes in the empty eye sockets are like two balls of ghost fire. There are 6 spider-like bone spurs on both sides of the body at the lower part of the back of the head, and the palms and claws that were originally short and criticized by people are now completely stretched and elongated, with giant bone claws at the end. But the most eye-catching thing is the giant missile located on the spine of its back, which also has dark green eyes and is longer than Tyrannosaurus. Seeing the zombie Tyrannosaurus in front of him, which is completely lifeless and looks like it has crawled out of the grave, Qingliu only feels a dry pain in his throat and swallows saliva involuntarily. Kaka. Kaka. It seems that because of the sound of swallowing saliva, or perhaps because it hates him so much, the giant skeleton monster in front of him slowly turned around with the sound of bones colliding, and set its sights on Qingliu. Although there are no pupils in the dark green eyes, Qingliu can clearly feel that the biting cold has locked on him. This made Qingliu hold his breath instantly, and the hair on his back stood up, and he felt a strong breath of death enveloping him. If it was just a feeling of Tyrannosaurus bleeding and fighting desperately, covered with the red light of evolution, that made people feel some instinctive fear and terror, then the zombie Tyrannosaurus standing in front of him now was the embodiment of horror. Even though he had challenged many powerful trainers and Pokemon in the Sinnoh region, and even fought those ancient and powerful ghost Pokemon, he had never felt a fatal resistance instinctively. This was not like the breath that a normal Pokemon could emit, but rather like a killing machine from the world of the dead. Where did that kid get this terrifying monster from? The physical strength was so strong that it was terrifying, the moves were powerful, and it could speak human language. Now even this aura could not help but make people feel afraid. His previous remarks about its characterization of a reckless man and its moves collapsed in an instant and turned into ashes. The only lucky thing was that no matter how terrifying the breath it exuded, it was probably no more than the level of super strength and Heracross before it evolved. Lucario is 2 times ahead in level, so he definitely has a chance of winning. Lucario, use Dragon Wave. Lucario was also extremely nervous at this moment. What Qingliu could feel, it could also feel with its more sensitive senses, and more clearly. The wave that kept coming gave it an unprecedented sense of oppression and suffocation. The huge skeleton in front of him was extremely dangerous, and he had to go all out to get rid of it. Lucario quickly mobilized the power of the wave to help him accurately control all the dragon energy, while concentrating it in his mouth, turning it into a dark blue beam and spitting it out violently. The distance of 10 to 20 meters passed in the blink of an eye, and the dragon wave rushed directly towards zombie Tyrannosaurus. Faced with this sudden attack, zombie Tyrannosaurus looked down, raised its huge bone claws without dodging or avoiding, and directly chose to grab it head-on. Seeing this, Qingliu showed a happy expression on his face. Although it has evolved, it seems to have lost its mind and become a fool. It dares to take on Lucario's dragon wave like this. But before Kakugo's smile could fully bloom, he saw that the originally fierce dragon wave was directly stopped by the bone claws when it hit Zombie-Tyrannosaurus. The surging and violent dragon energy kept hitting the claws of Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, but it could only push its huge body back little by little, and could not cause any damage at all. It was like a 3-year-old child trying to push down an adult, but the child tried his best but couldn't do it. How is it possible? Kakugo knew clearly the power of Lucario's full-strength dragon wave. Just now, it was because of this dragon wave that it broke through Tyrannosaurus' 2 powerful super blasts in a row and set off a powerful energy explosion. But now, it couldn't cause much damage to the skeleton in front of him. What the hell is this thing? Lucario, attack with all your strength. Lucario held his breath, and at the cost of his physical strength, he increased his energy output and increased the power of his moves. In an instant, a stronger wave of dragon energy blasted out. Facing this attack, Zombie-Tyrannosaurus did not choose to take it directly as he did just now, but lowered his head and stared at his claws with dark green eyes. The next second, dragon energy quickly covered it, and 5 sharp dark blue claws instantly condensed on the already huge bone palm. Dragon move, Dragon Claw. Looking at the incoming dragon wave, Tyrannosaurus raised his claws and slapped it directly. Chi. The sharp claws completely cut through the dragon wave without any hindrance, and Zombie-Tyrannosaurus took a big step against this force. As the ground shook, the surging dragon energy wrapped around the bone-like tail of Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, which was half erected behind him. As his body turned, the huge tail raised a dull whistle in the air and whipped Lucario fiercely. Dragon-type moves, Dragon Tail. Kakugo had no time to be shocked at how this guy who obviously couldn't learn Dragon-type moves could suddenly learn all of them after evolving, nor did he have time to be shocked at how he could easily defeat Lucario's dragon waves by leaping so many levels. What he needed to do now was to dodge. Because Zombie-Tyrannosaurus was too big. With just a simple turn, the horn on its head had already overturned a large part of the entire building above it, and its tail was like a steamroller that was 10 to 20 meters long. Especially since it was condensed with extremely violent dragon-type energy, the consequences would be unimaginable if it was touched. Almost as soon as he squatted down, a raging storm passed by where he had just stood and fell to the ground. Boom! A loud noise rang out, and the terrifying sound stimulated people's eardrums and hurt. In the smoke and dust that rose to the sky, Zombie-Tyrannosaurus retracted its tail. Lucario, relying on his own physical and speed advantages, also dodged in advance when the dragon's tail attacked. At this moment, its figure also rushed out of the smoke and dust in a few jumps, with its fists ready to go, and punched Zombie-Tyrannosaurus from a distance. Fighting-type move, Vacuum Wave. An invisible vacuum wave crossed the distance barrier and hit Zombie-Tyrannosaurus directly in the face. But unlike the previous time when it hit Tyrannosaurus, Zombie-Tyrannosaurus seemed to have not felt it being hit by the vacuum wave, and its body did not stop or stiffen at all. Instead, after just a glance at Lucario who was trying to get closer, the bone claws instantly burned with flames and clenched into fists, ignoring Lucario's current location and the direction of the rush. Perhaps Zombie-Tyrannosaurus had no such awareness at all, and just raised his arm and punched the ground in front of him. Boom! With a roar, the hard geology specially selected as the battlefield was shattered into pieces by the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus's flaming fist. With its feet as the center, it broke into a dense spider web, and the hot breath of the flaming fist overflowed from it. Countless gravel and dust were shaken up, and the whole building was shaking and tottering. It's big, but it's so strong. This level of destructive power is simply horrifying. A punch directly smashed half of the battlefield. Lucario's forward path was completely disrupted at this moment, and he was forced to move to a slightly intact area next to him to dodge. Just as it dodged a piece of gravel, a shadow with scattered airflow suddenly appeared under its feet and hit it on the head. So fast. Lucario wanted to escape the moment he sensed the attack of Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, but he found that the bone palm was too fast. The strong air pressure generated by the swing was like an invisible big hand, nailing it to the spot and unable to break free. The next moment, the bone palm fell. Bang! Exclamation mark. The whole ground was shaken violently, and Lucario's figure disappeared in the smoke and dust, and the battle building that had been shaky for a long time began to partially collapse at this moment. Zombie-Tyrannosaurus stood in place, looked around and found no other movement, and roared to the sky. Roar! Those suppressed and terrifying red energies that disappeared with its evolution completed before gushed out of its body again and rushed into the sky. Curtain breeding house. Okay, everyone has a share. UC looked at the Pokemon that were gathered in circles in front of him and deposited in the breeding house, and smiled and distributed the special puffin that he had just made to them. Seeing that every Pokemon was eating very satisfied, UC slowly stood up, the smile on his face gradually faded, and he looked solemnly at the red light rising into the sky not far away. If I remember correctly, that should be the curtain gym nearby. Mr. Qingliu said before that he would challenge the gym, and the time just happened to be right. Now, has something unexpected happened? Not far away, Lei Shenji stood under a tree, one expressionless, the other full of doubts. The two brothers also looked at the location of the curtain gym, with different expressions, and did not speak. On the other side, Curtain City Public Security Management Office. Miss Junsha, who had just finished patrolling, looked at the red light rising into the sky, emitting an ominous aura, and her slender and delicate eyebrows slowly wrinkled. That direction is the west of the city. The only place worth paying attention to is the Vale Gym. And, there seemed to be a flash of red light before. I thought it was an illusion. Now it lasted for so long. It seems that I was right. Miss Junsha, just now several residents near the Vale Gym reported that there was a continuous and huge noise there. Do we need to send someone to check the situation? A young police officer next to her immediately reported. Continuous. Miss Junsha nodded after a moment of silence. Leave one person on duty tonight, and the others bring their Pokemon and follow me. Yes. Miss Junsha immediately climbed onto the car and said to the Growler next to her, Growler, let's go and take a look. Woof woof. Growler jumped up and jumped onto the back seat of the motorcycle. With a roar of the throttle, the man and the dog quickly disappeared in the distance. Immediately afterwards, more than a dozen uniformed police officers quickly gathered and rode their respective motorcycles towards the Vale Gym. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Crisis Strikes. Curtain City, Galaxy Curtain Building. This high-end office building looks very magnificent on the surface, but secretly it is the headquarters of the largest underground evil organization in the Sinnoh region, Team Galaxy. The leader of Team Galaxy, Cherry, who is wearing a suit and tie, has a stern look and a sharp face, and is standing by the window at this moment, with his hands behind his back, looking at the curtain gym not far away. Or rather, he is looking at the red beam of light above the gym. Have you checked it out? I have checked it out, Leader Cherry. A young woman with purple hair and a bun tied on the top and bottom immediately replied. This morning, the main character of the Vale Gym, Qingliu, and his daughter, Ali, appeared on the first floor of the Vale Game City, accompanied by a strange boy. According to the surveillance footage, the three seemed to have a conversation about something that needed to be kept secret, but because Lucario used a wave guide to support the protective shield, the specific details are unclear. Continue. After leaving the Vale Game City, Qingliu and Ali returned to the Vale Gym, and the boy went to the breeding house and then to the meteorite crater. After a battle with the son of the owner of the breeding house, he went to the Vale Gym this evening and has not come out until now. Suxing, who had two buns, wore a black and white Galaxy uniform and boots, said word by word. Meteorite crater. Cheery muttered for a while, then asked, so that means that the beam of light was caused by the battle between Qingliu and the boy. I can't be sure, but the probability is very high. Have you checked the identity of the boy? I'm checking it, and there will be results soon. Cheery heard this and fell into deep thought. Suxing went on to say, Chief, Qingliu has long been a waste, and his Lucario's strength has stagnated over the years. It's impossible for them to cause such a big noise, and this ominous aura doesn't feel like the power of waves. Suxing paused for a moment, and seeing that Akaji didn't react at all, he continued, I speculate that the boy must have carried something very unusual or Pokemon, and he deliberately took a detour to the meteorite crater most likely for this reason. Maybe it has something to do with our plan. Suxing stopped here. Cheery glanced at her calmly and asked, what do you want to say? Suxing immediately lowered his head and said respectfully, I suggest that you send someone to the curtain gym immediately to investigate what happened. If you can confirm that the other party has something or Pokemon related to the leader's plan, take action immediately to capture it. Otherwise, it will be troublesome to wait for Miss Junsha or the people from the Alliance to arrive first before you take action. Qingliu heard this and did not answer directly. Instead, he asked, "How are you executing the plan that Thatch provided from Team Rocket?" "It is being implemented as the top priority within the organization. Kakugo, the curtain gym in the city, is no longer managing the gym. Denji, the master of the Binhei gym in the southeast, is busy cleaning up the internal strife. The master of the Gaia Ray gym in the southwest also recently went on a trip to Cutting Edge City. Except for Agumon, the master of the Iron Island in the east, and the Sinnoh Alliance on Suzerain Island, there are no people or forces in the nearby area who can stop any of our actions." Hearing that nearly half of the 8 major gyms had been taken care of by Thatch in the way Team Rocket had set up the regional alliance, Qingliu's face showed no joy, but instead asked in a cold voice, "Since the plan is being executed so smoothly, then, where are the tokens in the hands of the gym leaders?" Sui Xing's face suddenly froze. In order to activate the gun key hidden in the random ruins, 3 tokens passed down from ancient times need to be placed, but there has been no news of any tokens since the plan was implemented. Needless to say, the leader is very dissatisfied. So Sui Xing lowered his head and said, "I'm very sorry. What we can confirm so far is that there is no token in Kakugo's hand. Then there is no need for the curtain gym to exist, and don't waste time on it anymore." Qingliu turned around slowly and said slowly, "Confirm the specific situation, solve the problem as quickly as possible and leave, don't expose yourself, and don't get into some meaningless disputes with others." "Yes." After Sui Xing left, Qingliu looked at the beam of light outside the window again and was silent for a long time, the breath of gloom and death. "Why does it remind me of the one hidden in the shadow world in Sinnoh mythology?" Feeling a burning stinging sensation on his palm, Qingliu couldn't help but open his eyes. What he saw was a mess. A hole was directly broken in the ceiling of the originally spacious and neat battlefield. He sat in the corner, surrounded by ruins. "I was so careless that I actually got myself hurt." After wiping the blood flowing from the corner of his eye, Qingliu confirmed that he only had some minor bruises on his body from the collision, except for the scratch on his head that had stopped bleeding. He began to quickly recall what happened just now. At this time, the heat on the palm of his hand came again, interrupting his thoughts. Qingliu raised his right hand and looked at the position of his palm. He saw that the sacred plan that had originally merged with his palm and turned into a mark was now emitting waves of strange red light. Every time it lit up, Qingliu would feel a tingling pain. The last time it glowed was because Agumon evolved into Tyrannosaurus, but it was a white light at that time. What's going on this time? Could it be? Thinking of this, Qingliu suddenly remembered what happened before he hit the wall and lost consciousness. A guess popped up in his mind, and he stood up from the ground suddenly. Then, a figure of huge size and shape very similar to a dinosaur skeleton came into view. Especially after seeing the torpedo-shaped missile mixed with orange and green on the back of this figure, a picture suddenly flashed through Qingliu's mind. Could it be that he really came out? He quickly opened the panel illustration and locked his eyes on the figure in front of him. Race, Zombie Tyrannosaurus, Classification, Undead Pokemon, Attribute, Dragon, Ghost, Feature, Fighting to the death. It has given up its physical and intellectual abilities in order to continue fighting, gaining powerful attack power. The power of all offensive moves is increased by 50%, level 23. Exclusive moves, Super Flame Heartbreak. The power of a full-strength attack from its perfect form is comparable to the center of a nuclear explosion. Ghost type, power 120, Sharp Claws Death Spikes, chop with huge, sharp bone claws. Ghost type, power 80, Super Blast Annihilation Bird, an enhanced version of Heartbreak. After charging, it uses its own tracking function, and its power and damage range are significantly increased. Ghost type, power 130, Tyrannosaurus Rex, Dragon type, power 60, mastered moves, Dragon Claw, Dragon Tail, Flame Fang, Flame Fist, Double Cleave. Race stats, 610, horsepower 95, attack 132, defense 90, special attack 135, special defense 88, speed 70, intimacy, -1, cannot distinguish friend from foe, status, frenzy, weak, information summary, only bones remain on the body, and the only thing in mind is fighting. It continues to survive with a strong fighting instinct. Its existence is a threat to all creatures. It will not stop unless its physical strength is exhausted. Its special move is the organic missile launched from the spine, Heart of Destruction. According to the latest information, Heart of Destruction has evolved into a move with a new tracking function, and its power and range have also been significantly improved. Oblivion Bird, Divine Plan, it has temporarily evolved into Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, complete form, without meeting one of the evolution conditions, level 20, 40, 60, 70. Sure enough. Seeing the confirmed information on the panel, Qingliu has already guessed a general course of events. Taking a deep breath, suppressing the trembling body caused by the crazy secretion of adrenaline, Qingliu began to think about how to deal with the current situation. Evolution is certainly a good thing, but Zombie-Tyrannosaurus is obviously not on this list. This attack form that has completely lost its intelligence and cannot distinguish friend from foe can be said to be extremely dangerous. In the Digimon world, after Taichi Yagami's Tyrannosaurus evolved into Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, he could kill any creature that appeared before him. He first killed a Tyrannosaurus in 1 second, then blasted it into data slag with a burst of heart, and then easily killed the 3 mature protagonists in 1 move. In this state, it can be said that except for Zombie-Tyrannosaurus himself, all other creatures can't survive, including himself, who is also at risk of dying here. Qingliu quickly browsed the information of Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, and finally locked on the Sacred Plan column. After reaching the corresponding level of evolution, the form will be fixed directly and will not degenerate, but now the level is not enough but it is forced to evolve. Does it mean that there is still a possibility of changing back? Combined with the example of Zombie-Tyrannosaurus degenerating directly into Rolling Ballman in his memory, Qingliu felt that this conjecture was more and more possible. The only way to make a change back is to exhaust his physical strength. But he only had Blue Cotton Bird and the legendary White Stone, neither of which had much combat power, so he needed to find external help. Thinking of this, Qingliu at least turned over and jumped onto a fallen beam and began to search around. Since Tyrannosaurus was in a state of rage because of him, and the surroundings were obviously just demolished, it was very likely that he had fought with Kokugo's Lucario. At this moment, Qingliu hoped for the first time that Kokugo would appear in front of him intact. Since it was this guy who caused Tyrannosaurus to go berserk and become what it is now, it is natural that he should solve this problem. Qingliu looked around and searched around frantically with a panel. Soon, he found a Lucario. The panel scanned it and the level showed that it was level 23. Ali's Lucario? That means there is a high probability that Lee is also there. After confirming that the position where Lee was standing was a distance away from Zombie-Tyrannosaurus and there was basically no danger, Qingliu began to continue searching. Finally, he found Kokugo's figure under a pillar, as well as a Goraik, a stranger, a Heracris, and the level 48 Lucario with him. Howley, Guili, and Heracris supported the surrounding buildings that might tilt down. Lucario stood in the middle, and a strong aura gathered on it. And as time changed, Lucario's aura continued to grow stronger. Obviously, it was constantly using transformation-type moves to improve its combat effectiveness. Sword Dance. Qingliu's eyes fell on Kokugo, and then he looked at the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus who was about to leave for the city, and bent down to pick up a stone. After gathering all his strength, he threw it at Kokugo's position with all his strength and hit it all at once. Lucario, who was originally preparing for the sword dance, noticed the attack, turned around and raised his arm to smash the stone, and at the same time, his eyes swept over the place where the stone flew, but he did not find any figure. Lucario, what's wrong? Kokugo asked. Lucario took a last look at the place not far away, and the wave guide said, someone threw a stone here, but I didn't see anyone. I don't know what they want to do. That guy is outside, and I don't dare to use the wave guide at this distance. Before he finished speaking, the ground began to shake violently. Kokugo suddenly thought of something, his face changed, and he quickly raised his head to look not far away. He saw that the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus that had already left was taking big steps and rushing towards where they were. Damn, the position is exposed. Kokugo cursed, breathing rapidly, looking at the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus that was rushing towards them, and quickly said, we can't sit here and wait for death. We must rush out directly, delay time together, and then leave in batches. What about Lee? Lucario asked. Kokugo was silent for a few seconds, and said, now is not the time to think about this, and her previous location is closer to the outside, so she should have left safely. After Qingliu quickly assigned the tasks, the 4 Pokemon nodded in unison. Then, Gaia and Gali rushed out first, Heracross flapped his wings and flew beside him, and Lucario was at the end, continuing to use Sword Dance while moving forward. Qingliu took this opportunity to sneak outside the gym. Facing the 4 Pokemon that suddenly appeared and rushed towards it, Zombie Tyrannosaurus raised its arms, and dragon energy instantly lingered on it, and its huge dark blue claws slapped it directly. Seeing this, Galia and Gali let out a roar, and burning flames and raging cold air appeared on its arms respectively. It punched left and right at the same time, and blasted head-on. The Flame Fist and the Ice Fist collided directly with the Dragon Claw. Bang! Exclamation mark. The flame and cold air collapsed instantly, and Zombie Tyrannosaurus's claws easily slammed Gali and Gali into the ground, sinking deep into it. Then the dragon claws continued to grab Heracross, who was flying over. With little physical strength left, Heracross, with the help of his special ability, Bug Premonition, now has an extremely strong aura. He uses the advantage of being able to fly to quickly stop and avoid the attack of the dragon claw. At the same time, the horn on his head flashes with white light and rushes towards the Zombie Tyrannosaurus. Super Horn Attack. With the coverage of Bug Premonition, the power of Super Horn Attack reaches a terrifying value. The next second, bang! Another dull sound rang out, and Heracross crashed directly into the ruins beside him like a fly that was slapped to death. At this point, 3 Pokemon lost their ability to fight, leaving only Lucario. And time, only less than 2 seconds have passed. I wanted to ask for leave, forget it, I'd better update it. Chapter 97, Zombie Tyrannosaurus. Is this the power of a perfect Digimon? Seeing Zombie Tyrannosaurus kill 3 Pokemon with 1 strike, even Qingliu couldn't help but feel a little excited. Although Tyrannosaurus also has the ability to kill Gary and Heracross in 1 second, it is impossible for even Tyrannosaurus to do it so easily and casually, and to kill a nearly level 40 monster at the same time. More importantly, Zombie Tyrannosaurus has not yet shown its true strength, and has only used a few close combat moves. Then, Qingliu's eyes fell on the torpedo-shaped missile on its back. The Heart of Destruction, also known as the Zero Cruise Missile, and the enhanced version of the Annihilation Bird, are the real killer moves of Zombie Tyrannosaurus. Although Qingliu doesn't know whether the Zombie Tyrannosaurus, which is now more than level 20, can exert their full strength and whether they really have the ability to destroy a city. After all, even if they both use Water Splash, Magikarp's Water Splash is definitely different from Kyogre's Water Splash. But even if it is a small nuclear weapon, its power should not be underestimated. So, taking advantage of the gap between the battle between Zombie Tyrannosaurus and Qingliu's Pokemon, Qingliu found where Lee was. The moment he saw Qingliu, Lee's eyes fell on the blood on his forehead, and he stopped talking immediately. Finally, he sighed heavily and lowered his head. Qingliu, I'm so sorry. I brought you here because I said my father had a way to solve your problem. I didn't expect him to be more and more stupid. Not only did you get injured, but Tyrannosaurus became what it is now. I'm really sorry. It's not your problem. Tyrannosaurus and I were too impatient. Qingliu said quickly, now is not the time to talk about this. You leave here immediately and evacuate all the people in and around the gym. Try not to have any living creatures stay around here. It's even better to hide somewhere farther away for a while. Regarding Qingliu's words, Ollie was shocked and confused. What do you mean? Thanks to your father, the situation has gotten out of control. Now even I can't command Tyrannosaurus. Hearing what Qingliu said, Ollie immediately remembered the weird look of Tyrannosaurus when it evolved, and its huge and terrifying appearance that didn't look like a Pokemon at all. Such an evil and powerful Pokemon is probably not a good person. Then I can. Seeing Ollie open her mouth, Qingliu, who knew what she wanted to say, waved her hand to interrupt her and said, the longer you delay, the greater the chance of something happening. Tyrannosaurus will not let Qingliu leave, and now only you can save more people. There should be Miss Juncha in Vale City, let her help you evacuate all the people nearby. What about you? Me. Qingliu was silent for a moment, and said, Tyrannosaurus became like this because of me, what's the matter with me running away now? But you said that the situation is out of control, and so many of us are in danger of life, then you're just waiting to die if you stay here. Qingliu heard this, reached out and took out a Poké Ball from his pocket, and gradually showed a crazy smile on his face. It is indeed very dangerous, but many things always need to be tried, don't they? On the other side, Kakugo's face became extremely gloomy when he saw that his 3 Pokémon lost their combat effectiveness again in an instant. Even though he knew that even if he added a first-tier monster, it would probably not have much effect, but he didn't expect that he couldn't last for 2 seconds. Fortunately, the time required is enough. Kakugo looked at Lucario, who is now extremely powerful, and rushed towards Zombidiranosaurus with a sharp breath accompanied by the wave. With a full stack of Sword Dance, plus the power of the wave and the double level difference, I don't believe that I can't beat you, a beast with no IQ. Kakugo glanced around, looking at the battlefield that was almost destroyed and the various buildings in the gym that were also affected and collapsed, and said in an angry voice, "Lucario, Comet Fist." Lucario jumped up and passed through the gap between the Dragon Claw and the huge Bone Palm, and climbed up on the arm of Zombidiranosaurus. At the same time, he raised his fist, a touch of metallic luster flashed, and turned into a meteor and punched directly at the arm of Zombidiranosaurus. Bang! Zombidiranosaurus shook his arm impatiently, raised it high, and swung it downwards with great control, using the powerful inertia to throw Lucario out. Lucario landed on the ruins next to him, tapped on the ruins several times, and rushed out again, attacking with his petite body and flexible speed. But no matter how the Comet Fist fell or where it attacked, it even broke through to the vicinity of Zombidiranosaurus's head once, and a punch to the skull still did not cause any effective damage. The attack power after the 6 sword dances is still unable to break the defense of this beast. Kakugo's angry curse had just fallen, and Zombidiranosaurus raised his arm again, and a breath of death and destruction wrapped around the bone claws and slashed down fiercely. The ghost-type move evolved from the sharp claws, the death nail. Seeing this scene, Kakugo on the side had to choose another plan. Ever since he saw that Zombidiranosaurus had such terrifying strength and destructive power, and could easily pound Lucario into the ground in a short period of time, he had already thought in his heart that if he still couldn't defeat this monster after 6 sword dances, he might as well give up the idea of a crazy attack. Since he couldn't beat it head-on, he would defend and counterattack. Lucario has learned moves specifically for this situation. Especially at such a close distance now, all conditions are very suitable. Even if you are irrational now, I will show you how effective a flexible combination of moves can be. Lucario, use double return to resist. Lucario faced the attack with both hands in front of his chest, and used the power of the wave to defend himself. The next second, the death spike chopped down directly, and Lucario was directly chopped off from the air by the bone claw. But unlike the previous attack, Lucario was not directly chopped away by Zombidiranosaurus, but used the power of the wave to hold the bone claw tightly, making it fit with its body. At the same time, an energy no weaker than the death spike instantly covered Lucario's claws, and then punched Zombidiranosaurus' claws. Bang! A violent collision sounded, and the strong shock wave shook Zombidiranosaurus' body back a step. Even the heart in the chest seemed to be impacted and trembled violently. Seeing this scene, Kakugo sneered and said, "Haha, how about it? Double the return of my own power to hit the body, even a monster like you will feel pain." At this time, Lucario, who also suffered huge damage, was also bounced back by the recoil force and fell to the ground, panting and standing next to Kakugo again. "Kakugo, my physical strength is almost at its limit," Lucario said through the wave guide. Even though he had already taken a defensive stance and mobilized all the wave power to form a protective shield on the surface of his body, the attack power and strength of Zombidiranosaurus were too high and too strong. Just fighting against one move, the drastic loss of wave power consumed a lot of physical strength, and the powerful force directly shocked Lucario into a state of serious injury. "It doesn't matter. You are in the best state now. You can increase the power of the last attack to the maximum." Kakugo stared at the beating heart in the middle of Zombidiranosaurus' chest and said slowly, "If the heart is injured, it should have a significant impact on it. Next, use that move to attack with all your strength and try to solve it with one move." Lucario panted weakly, and after scanning Zombidiranosaurus with a wave, he nodded and placed his palms on his waist. Soon, the energy on Lucario's body and the energy gathered from all directions condensed and compressed, and an energy ball was born. However, it was not the blue of the wave bullet, but an orange-yellow color mixed with 2 colors. Fighting-type move, Resurrection. Attack with all your strength. The lower your physical strength, the higher the damage you can cause. With the help of resisting one attack from Zombidiranosaurus, You can reach the two limits of double return counterattack and low physical strength required for resurrection, and exert your last and strongest combat power. Even if Kokugo doesn't want to admit it, the monster on the opposite side is definitely a strong enemy that can't be stronger at this moment. This is the method that Kokugo thought of to allow Lucario to absolutely counterattack against a strong enemy. But all this has to be gambled with his life. If Lucario is killed by Zombie-Tyrannosaurus in one blow, then everything will be in vain, and he will most likely be trampled to death by the monster in front of him. But very fortunately, he made the right bet. Even if Lucario will completely lose his combat ability after this attack, as long as he defeats this guy in front of him, all problems will be solved. Lucario immediately prepared to charge. The light blue wave power lingered around it, and it supported its tired body, using the wave power to select the nearest and best attack route, and at the same time made the fastest response to Zombie-Tyrannosaurus. What neither Kokugo nor Lucario expected was that the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, which was originally extremely violent and aggressive, was very quiet at this moment. This strange silence gave Kokugo a bad premonition. What does it want to do? Seeing that Zombie-Tyrannosaurus had not moved for a long time, Kokugo suppressed his feelings and directly let Lucario attack. Seeing that Lucario had confirmed the attack route and was ready to go, Zombie-Tyrannosaurus, which had been silent, moved. Or to be more precise, it was the torpedo-shaped missile on its back that moved. That is, the moment it shook, Lucario, who had just taken a step, stopped instantly, and Kokugo's command was directly stuck, and the bodies of the two people trembled like sieves. The waveguides covering the surroundings fed back the information detected from the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus. A mysterious premonition came to Kokugo's mind, and the hair on his back stood up immediately, and cold sweat could not stop flowing on his forehead. What the hell? Why do I feel like I'm going to die soon? Kokugo breathed quickly and looked at the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus opposite in horror. The same situation was also Lucario. At this time, the resurrection moves gathered in his hands directly collapsed under this pressure, and the hair on his body suddenly expanded like explosive hair, and the breath of death filled around him. The wave guide told me that it is now very angry. Lucario took a few heavy breaths, and a trace of despair slowly emerged in his eyes. Kokugo, this time, it seems that we are really wrong and there is no turning back. After getting along for a decade or two, Kokugo certainly knew what Lucario meant. He was about to say something when something strange happened. The red light that shot up into the sky around Zombie-Tyrannosaurus gathered into its body again, and a terrifying pressure enveloped the entire curtain gym. The next second, the missile on Zombie-Tyrannosaurus' back began to burn. The bones in the spine that were used to fix the missile loosened one by one, and a thick smoke rose from the end. Zero cruise missile, launched. The target was Kokugo and Lucario. Buzz! A buzzing sounded in the air, and the huge missile that seemed to be 5 or 6 meters long showed at terrifying speed that was extremely inconsistent with its size. It almost teleported through a distance of dozens or hundreds of meters and appeared in front of Kokugo and Lucario. The next second. Boom! Exclamation mark. The strong wind swept past, and a huge explosion that almost swept across the entire valley of Curtain City rose into the sky, and all the clouds in the night sky were shattered. Then, a pure light that seemed to be the whole world was only white, expanding in all directions at a speed that could not be captured by the naked eye. Houses, buildings, trees, streets, and even a half-developed hill next to the gym collapsed in an instant under the shining white light, and all turned into ashes. In the training house on the other side of the city, the father and sons UC, Lacey and Shinji, who were just about to rest, were illuminated by the light and the windows were creaking. It's coming from the location of the curtain gym again. What happened? UC said to himself. Lacey, who had not spoken, was silent for a moment, turned over, got up, put on the clothes he had just taken off, and ran out of the house. Brother, where are you going? Shinji hurriedly got out of bed and chased after him. On the other side, more than a dozen police motorcycles honked their horns and were dispersing the crowd nearby. After Miss Junsha carried a child to the police car, she turned around and looked at the pink-haired girl in front of her and said solemnly, Ms. Lee, such an emergency evacuation operation is very disruptive to people's livelihood and is likely to cause strong dissatisfaction. I did it because I trusted you. If nothing happened later. Lee nodded gratefully. She also understood what Miss Junsha meant. If she did such a violation of regulations and disciplines without anything happening, the other party might bear a lot of responsibility in the end. However, in order to protect the information of Qingliu and Tyrannosaurus, she could not directly point out the situation. Just as she was hesitating about how to explain, a violent explosion was heard from the direction of the curtain gym. Then, the gym was completely lit up, and the entire night sky was like daylight. Chapter 98 Death and Life. What is this? Miss Junxia said to herself in confusion at the sudden scene. Ollie, who knew the situation, had changed his expression. Is this the situation that Qingliu said was out of control? But this is more than out of control, it is equivalent to a terrible natural disaster. In such an environment, can Qingliu survive? Can her father and Lucario survive? Thinking of this, Ollie thought that he should go back to take a look, even if his life was in danger. Miss Junxia, you can see that this matter is very unusual. The next evacuation and resettlement are all left to you. After saying that, Ollie called Lucario, who was assisting in the evacuation in the distance, and rushed directly to the direction of the curtain gym without waiting for Miss Junxia to reply. Curtain gym. Perhaps it can no longer be called the curtain gym now. Almost all the buildings and structures nearby have collapsed. The various green vegetation and trees near the gym have disappeared directly from the ground, leaving only a pit. A huge pit with an unknown width and a depth of about 20 to 30 meters suddenly appeared on the ground. Silver moonlight sprinkled down, and a desolate atmosphere came to his face. Click, click, click. Zombie Tyrannosaurus walked step by step to the edge of the pit, his dark green eyes searching up and down. The middle of the huge pit was pitch black, and there was no sign of life or any sign of life. Everything except dust returned to nothingness. After confirming that there were no fish that escaped the pit, Zombie Tyrannosaurus turned around and began to walk towards the center of the city of Vale. As his huge body moved, it shook up the already desolate ground. A blue-black figure emerged from the smoke and dust. Lucario, who was covered in blood and had a breath so weak that it was almost inaudible, roared, and a blue wave missile rushed straight to Zombie Tyrannosaurus's face. Facing this sudden attack, Zombie Tyrannosaurus raised his claws to block the wave missile, knocked it to the ground with a dragon claw, and directly grabbed it and smashed it to the ground. Lucario struggled to get up again. The blue wave power covered his body, forcibly supporting his body to charge again. The next second, puff! Zombie Tyrannosaurus, which had already turned around, swept its tail, and Lucario, who was hit hard, spit out a large mouthful of blood from his mouth, flew back, and smashed into the ruins beside him. His already seriously injured body was hit again, and Lucario coughed violently, and a stream of blood could not stop flowing from the corner of his mouth. Watching Zombie Tyrannosaurus step by step towards the center of the city, fatigue and severe pain came over his whole body, and the world in front of him faded like a tide, and darkness enveloped him. Click! There was a sound of footsteps in his ears, and Lucario opened his eyes with difficulty, moving his eyes little by little, looking at the figure standing in front of him. A well-proportioned boy wearing a black casual outfit. "You are still here," Lucario said with a trembling wave transmission. "I have to clean up this mess in the end, but what I didn't expect is that you didn't die in this explosion. Wave power is really a difficult thing." In order to ensure that he could observe the latest situation, Qingliu didn't run too far even when Zombie Tyrannosaurus used Heart Explosion, so he saw what happened at the moment of the explosion. Qingliu and Lucario, who also used some wave power, activated the wave shield at the same time, trying to use the shield to drag both parties into the air to avoid. However, the power and coverage of the Heart Explosion are too great, and the effective lethality is too terrifying. It is not something that ordinary wave power can withstand. Qingliu's shield was melted by the high temperature of the Heart Explosion in an instant. In order to save him, Lucario took the initiative to block him with a wave guide. Qingliu was blown away by the shock wave, and Lucario, who thought he was going to die, was lucky to be teleported to the other side of the explosion with the last wave power. Although he still did not escape the coverage of the Heart Explosion, the power of the explosion at the center and the edge was not of the same order of magnitude. With a little bit of strength mixed in with luck, it survived. Even though it was covered in wounds and bleeding, it survived. At this moment, when Lucario heard Qingliu's mocking words, he suddenly became excited. "Not dead." "Yes, I'm not dead, but what about Qingliu?" "Qingliu is dead." Before Qingliu could speak, Lucario was interrupted by the severe pain and constant fatigue. Then, Qingliu's cold voice rang out. Although I really want that guy to die, I have to say that he is really a disaster for 1,000 years. That guy's luck is as good as yours. Although he is about to die, he still has a breath. Qingliu looked at Lucario on the ground expressionlessly. Because of these two guys, the situation got out of control to such an extent in an instant, and even the stimulated Tyrannosaurus directly evolved into a zombie Tyrannosaurus that lost its mind and only knew how to destroy. Fortunately, it was just a forced temporary evolution, and it could be regressed. If it could not be regressed, Tyrannosaurus would always maintain the violent state of zombie Tyrannosaurus and destroy everywhere, and the final result would be only one, that is, being wiped out by the Alliance. It can be said that they almost pushed him and Tyrannosaurus off the cliff. Qingliu really couldn't muster any sympathy for these two guys. If this guy was not still useful now, Qingliu really wanted to kick it. Lucario was stunned when he heard it. The power of the wave was spread out with difficulty, and Kokugo's life breath did appear, which made it ecstatic, but it quickly adjusted its mood and looked at Qingliu. Compared with Kokugo, it is more rational and has more things to think about. If we really want to investigate all the problems in this matter, the basic source is Kokugo in it. This is an indisputable fact, and it can even be said that they are completely to blame. Since the failure of the impact on the four Heavenly Kings many years ago, after returning and meeting the Man of the Red Sun, Kokugo has fallen. This Pokémon, who claims to have mastered the power of Justice Waves, has also been affected invisibly. Presumably, after this incident, Kokugo could change and return to his former self, but it should not be able to see it. You come here now, do you want to silence me? No problem, but I hope you can let Kokugo go. Lucario asked. How is that possible? I am a law-abiding citizen. Hearing this, Lucario smiled helplessly. Facing such a terrifying explosion, he did not leave, but now suddenly appeared in front of him. If it was not to silence him, then what was the reason? To save it? What an international joke. But as time passed, Lucario saw that Qingliu had not made any move, and even took out a healing spray to start treating its injuries. Lucario could not sit still. What on earth do you want to do? I said, I am a law-abiding citizen. Lucario looked at the zombie Tyrannosaurus, which had walked a distance away, and said after taking 2 quick breaths. If you are a good law-abiding citizen, you should think about what to do next. Now that the gym is gone, you should be relieved, right? But the residents of Vale City are innocent. If an attack like that just now landed in the center of the city. Lucario thought of this, and even though it was so weak that it could hardly move, it shuddered. As a person who had faced the heart explosion move head-on, it naturally knew how terrifying the power was. That level of lethality could be considered a devastating blow to ordinary creatures. Hearing Lucario's words, Qingliu raised a mocking smile at the corner of his mouth. I can't believe you still know that the gym has the obligation to protect the city. Did Kokugo teach you that? In one sentence, Lucario was choked by 2 objects at the same time, as if he had eaten a pile of shit. The destruction of the gym had already made it very uncomfortable, and now Qingliu was rubbing salt on it, but who made the root of the fault not the other party but itself, and it didn't want to involve those innocent people and let them lose their lives because of its and Kokugo's mistakes. Human, there is no need to argue in this place. You can talk about what you want to do to me later. Now time is life. You said you are a law-abiding citizen, so... Qingliu interrupted directly, I have no interest in your life. I just need you to do something for me. As he spoke, Qingliu's smile gradually spread across his face. But this smile made Lucario feel a little scared. What is it? I need you to attract its attention, and then let it bombard you with shells. Qingliu slowly said the plan. Lucario was silent. If you really hate me and want me dead, you can just say so. There's no need to spend so much effort. This is not asking you to die, but to save the citizens of Vale City that you want to save. Qingliu put away the healing spray and slowly stood up. Or, what you said just now about protecting the citizens of Vale City was just talk, and you actually wanted to trick me into dying. Qingliu sneered and continued, that's right, after all, it's a bit ridiculous for a gym that bullies the weak to say that it wants to protect the citizens. Lucario immediately retorted, human, I don't have to lie about this kind of thing. Then go quickly. You really have a way, right? Lucario confirmed again. Seeing Qingliu nod, Lucario immediately struggled to get up. Even if Qingliu used the healing spray to treat its wounds, there was not much time for the drug to take effect, And in order to prevent it from suddenly attacking and hurting people, Qingliu used a very limited amount, and now Lucario can only move slightly at most. Then Lucario, enduring the pain in his body, began to roar at Zombie-Tyrannosaurus to attract its attention. Qingliu followed behind it at a distance, and at the same time took out a Poké Ball and held it in his hand. Qingliu had told Li to evacuate the people in the Vale Gym and the citizens before, and they should have all been evacuated by now. Therefore, the only thing he needed to do now was to wait for Zombie-Tyrannosaurus to run out of energy, put it back into the ball, and then leave Vale City to cut off all possible problems. The only thing Qingliu didn't expect was that Zombie-Tyrannosaurus did not reach its limit after using Heart Explosion once. In this case, we can only let it explode Heart again. If it doesn't work once, it won't work twice? If it really doesn't work twice, then it will be 3 or 4 times. As for how to solve the problem of the destructive power of Heart Explosion, Qingliu looked at the Poké Ball in his hand. The Pokémon inside was the legendary White Stone summoned from the crater of Vale City, the egg of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, which was so hard that it was beyond imagination and even a little weird. He had already used it to realize it when facing the first explosion. He was almost not hurt hiding behind it, and the surface of the legendary White Stone was not damaged either. So, what if it collides with the explosion head-on? Will it remain intact, or will it be shattered by the explosion? Qingliu didn't know, but he knew that he would not lose no matter which one it was. If it didn't shatter, he could use it to consume the physical strength of Zombie Greymon infinitely. If it shattered, there was a high probability that Blue Eyes White Dragon would appear directly, and it would also consume the physical strength of Zombie Greymon. It was nothing more than a matter of more profit or less profit. But he certainly couldn't attract Zombie Greymon to attack, and it was easy to have an accident, and Qingliu didn't want to take this risk. Then, this Lucario who survived by chance was the best candidate. I really didn't mean to kill you at the same time. Whether you can survive depends on your luck. Seeing Lucario getting closer and closer to Zombie-Tyrannosaurus and taking the initiative to provoke, Qingliu pressed the switch to enlarge the Poké Ball, holding it tightly in his hand and ready to go. Click. Click. Zombie-Tyrannosaurus moved its huge leg bones and strode forward. Lucario ran beside him. After seeing that words were useless, Lucario suppressed his panting chest and condensed the weak wave power in his hand into an egg-sized wave missile. Not only is my physical strength, but even my wave power has reached the bottom. Lucario cursed inwardly, but now the arrow was on the string and had to be shot, and then he aimed his hands at Zombie-Tyrannosaurus. Bang! After swinging twice in the air, the wave missile hit the back of Zombie-Tyrannosaurus. The sudden attack made it stop in its tracks. It turned around and its dark green eyes fell on Lucario. When it saw that it was this indestructible cockroach, Zombie-Tyrannosaurus was filled with anger. The next second, red energy carrying a terrifying pressure overflowed from the bones of Zombie-Tyrannosaurus and drilled into the spine of its back. The Zero Cruise missile that had been launched appeared again, and quickly transformed from an energy body to a physical body at a very terrifying speed. Lucario saw the orange and blue torpedo-shaped missile appear again, and the shadow of the bombing just now instantly enveloped it. Damn it, I can't move. Under the threat of death, Lucario's already weak body had no ability to resist or dodge at all. He could only watch the torpedo completely solidify, ignite smoke and dust, and finally, launch. The figure of Explosion Heart was reflected in his pupils, and Lucario closed his eyes in despair. Seeing this, Qingliu immediately stepped forward, swung his arms, and threw the Poké Ball with all his strength. Chapter 99 White Dragon Shell Shattered Tyrannosaurus degenerates. With a flash of red light, the Poké Ball opened, and a brown oval boulder 2 meters high and 1 meter wide appeared, landing directly in front of Lucario. The large figure directly blocked Lucario behind it. Lucario was a little confused by the sudden scene in front of him, but he soon found that the pressure from the back of the Zombie-Tyrannosaurus disappeared. Or to be more precise, it was completely blocked by the stone in front of him. Is this the solution? Lucario didn't know whether Qingliu's method would work, but his body was already moving. With the help of the time of waiting to die and the physical strength restored by the healing spray, he tried his best to move backwards. Then, the Zero Cruise missile flew over and instantly crossed the distance in the middle, hitting the boulder. The next second, bang! The huge and terrifying sound suddenly exploded in his ears, and the legendary white stone was blown away in an instant. The terrifying airwave and white light flashed again, and the terrifying scene caused by the explosion was about to come again. But then, a very strange scene happened. A dull humming sound was heard, and the legendary white stone flying in the air stopped, as if the pause button was pressed. Not only that, the explosion, sound waves, high temperature, and all the things that had great lethality to creatures and buildings produced by the exploding heartland were all paused in the air with the legendary white stone. And as time passed, everything produced by the zombie Tyrannosaurus Rex's exploding heartland moved, as if being pulled by some force, all gathered together to form a white torrent and merged into the legendary white stone, causing a faint white light to be emitted from its surface. The retreating Lucario had no time to pay attention, and for the sake of safety, it had to keep its distance without stopping. Seeing this, Qingliu, who was also running wildly in the distance, slowly stopped. Qingliu didn't know what was going on with the scene in front of him, but looking at the brown stone covering the surface of the legendary white stone, which was glowing and blocking the exploding heartland, he suddenly had a feeling in his heart. A very familiar feeling, as if I have seen it somewhere before. Stones from Vale City, meteorites, Arceus, could it be? Especially after hearing the buzzing sound in the air that melted the zombie Tyrannosaurus heart explosion move, Qingliu's thoughts became clearer. This sound is too similar, and it is too similar to the sound of Arceus switching various stone slabs to resist corresponding attribute moves. No wonder I said why it feels so familiar. The brown stones covering the surface of this thing are exactly the same as the meteorites in the Vale City meteorite crater. In this way, everything can be explained. The meteorites in the Vale City meteorite crater were indirectly created by Arceus when he created the world and fell in that place. Before the exploration and summoning, the panel also showed that they had the remnants of Arceus power, which was also the reason why the Galaxy team was able to extract a red chain from it to bind Dialga and Palkia later. Because I don't have the technology in this area, and I don't have this need, I don't have any plans in this regard. Unexpectedly, some of these things actually attached to the legendary white stone. Although he didn't understand the specific reason why they wrapped the white stone inside, it was not the first time that the egg thing had changed in his hands. First it was the blue-eyed bird, and now it was the blue-eyed white dragon. It was no wonder that when he first saw the legendary white stone, he only saw brown stone instead of the real white stone. At the same time, it could also explain why the surface of this thing was so hard that so many moves and huge forces could not break its defense. It is almost impossible for the Pokemon in the Pokemon world to break the defense of Arceus, the god of creation. Thinking of this, Qingliu couldn't help but look forward to it. So, what Pokemon can't do, can the Digimon in the Digimon world do it? Tyrannosaurus has tried to do it but couldn't, perhaps because it has been localized, or perhaps because its strength is not enough. But now it is a zombie Tyrannosaurus. Although the level has not changed much, there has been a qualitative change in the life level. Under Qingliu's gaze, the white light that was about to illuminate the sky and the legendary white stone were fully integrated. The entire explosion heart was completely swallowed by the legendary white stone and fell back to the ground. Boom. The next second. Crack. A crisp cracking sound was heard. Crack. Crack. Then came the second and third sounds, and a series of shattering sounds. The brown material that was originally tightly wrapped on the surface of the legendary white stone slowly began to peel off layer by layer, and bursts of crystal clear white light drilled out from the gaps, illuminating the originally dark surroundings. A holy and tyrannical breath that was completely opposite to the zombie Tyrannosaurus was about to break out of the cocoon. Qingliu opened the panel again, scanned it with the illustration, and finally his eyes fell on the legendary white stone's characteristics and status bar. Characteristics: standing after breaking, a new posture will be revealed only after the outer layer of defense is broken. Status: shattering. Finally, is it going to break out of the shell? But things are obviously not as simple as they thought. Qingliu took advantage of the time when he opened the panel illustration just now to look around and found that many Pokemon had already appeared in his area. Judging from their route and direction, they were most likely coming for him. There was no reason why so many organized Pokemon suddenly appeared in the city, and many of them were designated police dogs like Whirlwind, so it was basically certain that the person coming was Miss Chuncha from Vale City. Not only that, Qingliu raised his head and looked at the horizon not far away. The faint sound of helicopter propellers turning and cutting through the sky sounded in his ears, and a series of exploratory white lights were exploring the surroundings. Are you sending out a helicopter when you are not sure about the situation? Qingliu frowned and thought. But he soon discovered that the helicopter and the Pokemon that were approaching seemed to come from two completely different places, and according to the panel illustration, Growlithe also split a part of its force and rushed towards the location of the helicopter. From the words doubt and alert in their status bar, Qingliu judged that the people on the helicopter were most likely not in the same group as Miss Junsha, and they might not even know each other. They didn't know each other, but they had a helicopter, and they came to check shortly after the incident at the Vale Gym. A name instantly emerged in Qingliu's mind: Team Galaxy. The largest villain organization in the Sinnoh region, dedicated to controlling Dialga and Palkia to create a world that makes people feel complete. Their headquarters happened to be in Vale City, and their leader, Red Sun, was also a very wealthy entrepreneur. The organization was equipped with a special helicopter, so it was most likely that they reacted so quickly. If they were allowed to get closer and see Zombideer and Asaurus, many unnecessary problems might have occurred. Maybe Red Sun is not interested in snatching other people's Pokemon, but his men may not be. Facing Pokemon that look very powerful like Tyrannosaurus and Zombideer and Asaurus, snatching them to improve their own strength and help their leader achieve their goals is definitely the idea of most people except Red Sun. The matter of the Blue Eyes White Dragon breaking its shell cannot wait any longer. It must be resolved as soon as possible. Qingliu turned to look at Zombideer and Asaurus and shouted to Lucario not far away, "Come back quickly. We must hurry up and let it come again, otherwise we can't escape." Qingliu's voice spread far away, without waiting for Lucario to react. Zombideer and Asaurus, who had just launched the second Zero Cruise missile, saw that the attack was blocked by the legendary Shiraishi, and immediately let out an angry roar. Then, red light emerged from the whole body and gathered towards the empty back. The torpedo-shaped missile with dark green eyes appeared again. Click, click, click. Zombideer and Asaurus slowly moved his body, no longer paying attention to Lucario who had already run a distance, and instead locked his eyes on Shiraishi. At the same time, even Qingliu, who was a long distance away, also noticed something wrong at this moment. A more terrifying momentum than the explosion was quickly gathering. This was a feeling of strong discomfort from the life level. Even the two previous explosions of Heartland could not give Qingliu this feeling, so it was obvious what it was. Zombideer and Asaurus wanted to use the upgraded version of Explosion of Heartland at this moment, the ultimate move, Annihilation Bird. It's fine that I've already used Explosion of Heartland twice, but I still have the energy to use this. At this moment, Qingliu couldn't help but feel a little regretful. He regretted doing so much physical training for Tyrannosaurus and developing its physical strength to the point where it could support such an attack. Now he has only two choices. 1. Take the legendary White Stone away and avoid the attack. 2. Let the legendary White Stone, whose surface meteorite has begun to fall off, resist Zombideer and Asaurus attack again. The former can ensure that White Stone's shell is not affected, but he cannot be sure of the power of Annihilation Bird. In the end, the egg may be fine, but he himself may be in trouble. The latter may be fine, but the egg may not be. Qingliu made a quick decision in his heart. But what he didn't expect was that the torpedo-shaped missile behind Zombideer and Asaurus, which was about to condense from an energy body into a solid, collapsed. Once again turned into a red light and appeared around it. Zombideer and Asaurus seemed to have sensed something about this sudden scene, and suddenly raised his head and roared towards the sky. Roar! Invisible sound waves came out of Zombideer and Asaurus' mouth, bringing a storm straight into the sky. An even more violent red light enveloped Zombideer and Asaurus. Then, Zombideer and Asaurus' body began to deform and shrink in this red light, and the huge size of 14 meters shrank rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. 14 meters, 11 meters, 9 meters, 8 meters, 6 meters. Looking at the 6-meter body, flesh and blood tissue began to appear on the eerie white bones of Zombideer and Asaurus, and blood vessels shuttled through them. The blood began to flow again, and the yellow skin wrapped around it. The single horn on the top of the head was redifferentiated into a straight 3-bend sharp horn, and the brown shell covered the top of the head again. Zombideer and Asaurus degenerated into Tyrannosaurus again. Seeing this, Qingliu was overjoyed. He quickly used the Poké Ball to take back the legendary White Stone, threw out another Poké Ball, and rushed towards the location of Tyrannosaurus. Chirp chirp. The reappearing blue cotton bird suddenly landed on Qingliu's head. Blue cotton bird, now is a very important time. Use the white mist with all your strength. Qingliu looked at the two groups of people on the panel that were rapidly closing the distance between him and himself, and said quickly. Hearing the solemnity in Qingliu's words, Blue Cotton Bird nodded quickly, opened his mouth and spit out a cloud of white mist, covering the location where Qingliu was. Keep going, don't stop. Blue Cotton Bird immediately stood up, took a deep breath and spit out a cloud of white mist, trying to cover the surrounding area. Good job, keep going. Qingliu praised. Although this move may not be able to delay much time, as long as it provides a little help to himself, it is priceless. Soon, Qingliu arrived at the location where Tyrannosaurus was. Having lost all his strength, Tyrannosaurus collapsed to the ground, his eyes closed, his whole body weak. Even the breath of the bluebird was stronger than that of Tyrannosaurus, and there were clearly visible bloodstains on his body. Thinking of how energetic Tyrannosaurus was usually around him, and now, Qingliu couldn't help but take a deep breath to control his emotions. You've suffered. He took out the healing spray that he had prepared long ago, sprayed the most serious area quickly a few times, and then put Tyrannosaurus back into the Poké Ball. There is no time for careful treatment now, everything must wait until we leave. Qingliu then ran in the direction that Lucario had left before. Lucario, who was covered in injuries and whose movement speed was seriously affected, was soon caught up. When he saw Qingliu, Lucario stopped. Human, there are many people approaching nearby. I advise you to leave quickly. I know that without you telling me. Qingliu took out a Poké Ball and said to Lucario, you will be caught up sooner or later at this speed, so for the sake of safety, you must come with me. Are you threatening me? Lucario's expression darkened. This is not a threat, it's for your own good. Qingliu said in a light voice, if you are caught up by Miss Junsha, you will definitely be questioned later. When the shameful things you have done are exposed, the Veil Gym will be ruined, so. Lucario, you don't want this to happen, do you? Chapter 100 Middle Finger Greeting. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The propellers spun rapidly, cutting through the sky with a humming sound. Above the Curtain City, a black helicopter with a letter G printed on it was rapidly approaching the Curtain Gym. Suxing, who had purple hair and a bun tied on each side, opened the helicopter door, stepped forward with a leg that was not completely covered by the tight leather jacket to stabilize his body, and scanned the area below with the help of a searchlight and a telescope. Captain Suxing, no targets have been found so far. Suxing replied expressionlessly, I'm not blind. The member of the Galaxy team who had just reported was startled and hurriedly continued to observe. Until, something came into his sight, causing him to let go of the telescope in disbelief. He quickly rubbed his eyes and looked again. After confirming that he was not mistaken, a trace of fear involuntarily emerged in his heart. Captain Suxing, you come over here and take a look. The member of the Galaxy team said with some trembling. If you have anything to say, just say it. Don't be so nagging. Suxing was looking at the area below the helicopter next to the Curtain Gym. It seemed that all the trees, land and buildings in these places had been swept away by something. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a mess. For such a scene, she needed to observe carefully and not let go of any suspicious targets. Now asking her to change her position would really disrupt her thinking. The voice of the subordinate beside her came again. I think it would be better for you to come and take a look in person. Suxing frowned, revealing a hint of impatience in her expression. But when she turned her head and saw that the subordinate pointed to a certain direction under the helicopter with an unnatural look, she immediately realized something and pulled him aside, standing where he had just stood, and looked down with the help of a telescope. Soon, Suxing found the place that the team member had pointed to. What is this? Suxing murmured in disbelief. In the telescope, all the houses and buildings in the place that should have belonged to the Curtain Gym had disappeared, leaving only the barren ground. The Curtain Gym disappeared. How is it possible? Suxing denied it involuntarily. The area of the Curtain Gym is not as big as that of all the gyms in the Sinnoh region, but it is definitely not a small one. But such a gym disappeared out of thin air. Or, it was directly wiped out by something. Captain Suxing, you can look ahead. The member of the Galaxy team who was in charge of observation just now suggested. Suxing heard it and quickly adjusted the angle to look over. Desolate, still desolate. There is no essential difference from the place I saw just now, except that there is a big pit on the ground. A deep pit with an unknown diameter, which the helicopter searchlight can't illuminate the bottom at all, suddenly appeared on the desolate ground. Wisps of smoke and dust mixed with white mist slowly rose from the vicinity of the deep pit, which looked a little scary. The sense of deja vu like the gate of the underworld made Suxing's throat roll unconsciously and swallow a mouthful of saliva. She knew where this pit was before. As the gym in the city where the Galaxy Team's headquarters is located, the Galaxy Team not only has a very deep study of Kokugo, but also knows the gym structure and area very well. The general area of this place should be the largest and most solid battlefield in the Vale Gym. The ground is made of very solid special stones, and the wood on the ceiling is also specially treated high-grade wood. It can be said that this area is the strongest place in the Vale Gym. But it is such an area that has been blasted into such a terrifying huge pit. Suxing thought of the red beam that shot up into the sky before she came, and the white light that was accompanied by strong winds and roars when she set out, which almost blinded her eyes. Obviously, the current situation on the ground is inseparable from these two anomalies. Kokugo can't do such a thing. Only that boy can do it. He can't cause such a degree of damage at his age. So what exactly could it be? What kind of Pokemon is it, or what kind of thing has such a strong power and such terrifying destructive power? Suxing couldn't help but feel a little fear of the unknown, and underneath this fear, madness and excitement. No matter what it was, if he could have such a thing, it would be a very powerful help in achieving the goal of the Galaxy Team and realizing the plan of the leader Cherry. Moreover, he might be able to completely suppress that guy who walks in with this thing. As for his own life, he had already given it up when he joined the Galaxy Team as a cadre. Everything was for the leader. Thinking of this, Suxing's cold and proud face became serious. Send all the observed video data and information back to the headquarters, and ask the leader to send more people. The goal this time is very unusual. Yes. Several team members immediately started to operate. Suxing continued to observe the ground. Without any building blocking, it was very convenient and intuitive to observe from top to bottom with the help of lights and telescopes. There was almost no interference except for some fog. I didn't see Kokugo and the boy, nor did I see a human figure or any Pokemon. So it seems that the people in the Vale Gym and the surrounding area received the message and left in advance. Then, where did the target go? Suxing looked at the white mist that filled the surroundings on the ground. Fly low and check all the areas. The pilot immediately controlled the helicopter to get close to the ground and began to shuttle between the fog and the pits, but found nothing. Nothing at all. She was not surprised at the current situation. She naturally knew that these things were probably deliberately made by someone to hinder people who might come in by time. But now the matter is of great importance. Even if she knew it was probably a trick, she had to send people to check everything to ensure that there was no mistake. Nothing here, so there's only one last place left. Suxing raised her head and looked at the location of the last group of white mist, and a deep mountain forest not far from this location, which was far away from the Vale Gym. Captain Suxing, the Vale City police officers who were chasing us just now are catching up again, and there seems to be another group of people led by Miss Junsha next to them. They are so fast. Suxing glanced at the ground behind them. There were indeed many flashing lights heading towards their current location, and from time to time, there were strong barking of dogs in his ears. Captain Suxing, what should we do now? Don't worry about them, keep flying at low altitude. At this distance, those caterpillars will definitely catch up with us by smelling the scent. The teammates of the Galaxy Team were hesitant to speak. I said don't worry about it. Yes. Suxing looked at the light behind him coldly and took out a Poké Ball. With a flash of red light, a skunk covered with purple and creamy yellow long hair, with its tail close to its back and drooping in the opposite direction, appeared in front of him. Tank Skunk, release the stink with all your strength. Tank Skunk nodded, turned around, with its butt facing inwards and its head facing outwards. The next second, a stream of extremely smelly purple gas continued to be emitted from the tip of the tail above the head of Tank Skunk, rushing out dozens of meters. With the rapid flight of the helicopter, the gas soon enveloped all nearby areas. Okay, fly to the forest in front. Miss Junsha, that helicopter of unknown origin has appeared in front again. Miss Junsha nodded, looked at the helicopter flying close to the ground not far away, and said quickly, let the Growlithe rush forward, no need to attack, just confirm the smell. Understood. Under the command of their respective trainers, the Growlithes rushed forward, the area that originally belonged to the curtain gym but was now empty. But soon, these Growlithes with twitching noses wrinkled their faces, covered their noses with their paws, and whimpered with painful expressions. "What's going on? Growlithe, what's wrong with you?" Several police officers who were worried about the current situation of their Pokemon were about to step forward to check, but Miss Juncha stopped them directly. "Don't move yet, there's a problem ahead." Huh? Lights shone over, and in front of them, there were white mists, mixed with wisps of purple gas mixed with the night. A police officer approached slightly, sniffed lightly, and was almost suffocated by the stench. "Use fire and flying elves to clear all the gas in this area." The police officers around her began to act one by one. Miss Juncha looked at the dark front with a solemn expression. "Attack the curtain gym, and then used poison gas to cover up the smell." Are these two groups of people together? On the other side. In the dense jungle, Qingliu was running wildly in the dim sky. Thanks to the fact that he had been running non-stop since he came here from the random ruins, and then he and Agumon also did physical training together, Qingliu's physical fitness was very good. Even after crossing such a long distance from Curtain City to enter the jungle, his breath was still stable, but his face did not show any sign of relaxation. Qingliu looked around, staring at the various information about Pokemon displayed on the blue panel that only he could see, and breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Miss Juncha's group was affected by something and didn't catch up, but in addition to the group of caterpillars, there was a tank skunk on the panel. Judging from the level and the super fast speed of the other party approaching his position, it can be confirmed that they are the guys on the helicopter of the Galaxy team. The speed difference is too big. It's a bit difficult to get rid of them. We must find a way to trick them off the plane and use the advantage of being familiar with the jungle to get rid of them. Qingliu stopped, turned around and stood in place, looking at the helicopter that was speeding not far away. Soon, the sound of the propeller spinning rapidly came from above, and a gust of wind blew, and the searchlight shone on the ground. Qingliu stood in the shadow of the tree, and with the help of a little light, his eyes met the star standing at the door of the cabin. Then he clenched his right hand into a fist, slowly raised it, and raised his middle finger. "I'll rub it after get off work. There are still 2 chapters and 6,000 words to go. Wait a minute." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.